When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I grew older, I set aside childish ways. Corinthians 13:11. In the distant future, mankind has spread into the stars and found it is not alone. Within the cluster of planets known as the Silrain Arc, many races strive for survival or supremacy. But throughout this array of planets, societies, and cultures, each has one thing in common: the crucibles. Scattered throughout the galaxy, each moon-sized structure contains a core of raw sorin, a form of mysterious energy used to power ships, cities, and sometimes the warping of the fabric of reality itself. Beings who can do this have been given a name: Espers. The power of God has been granted to God's children. It is a time of terror. It is a time of wonder. It is the time of Esper Genesis.
Loving that sound. What's going on, everybody? Welcome, Arvanauts. Welcome, everybody, to a Friday night stream. It is 9:30 p.m. Eastern, and it is my great pleasure to welcome everybody to... Wow, check out that timing. Right Teach Play with a resub. Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Much love. You'll be hearing more, excuse me, from Carlos in just a minute. But before we get to him, I do want to remind everybody about ways to support the stream, as we are here with Esper Genesis, sponsored as always by Alligator Alley Entertainment, and day 34 of Esper Genesis Viral Fallout. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get it all started. But before we do that, we need to talk a little bit about ways to support the stream. If you have not done so already, please consider following the channel. Please make sure to check out the YouTube with !ArvTube. The Discord will get you to hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. That's !ArvCord. Twitter is !ArvTweets. Please retweet this stream with !tweet. That is always appreciated. Please make sure, if you have not done so already, to consider checking in all of this out over at arvaneleron.com, which is my website for all of this. And please spread the word in all of these various places and venues. On the financial side, if you haven't done so already, please check out the merchandise area with !Arv Shop. We have right now various shirts and bandanas and mouse pads and hoodies and sweaters and all that kind of good stuff to support us on the basis of D&D Infinity and Beyond, which is going to be coming at you tomorrow with Curse of Strahd. We also have some Adventures of Middle-earth stuff over in the merchandise area as well, with the amazing Terry Toons doing the illustrations. And we are going to be adding some Esper Genesis stuff to the merchandise area soon as well. So you can check that out over at !ARV Shop. Patreon, currently sitting at 302, excuse me, is !ARVTreon. And it would be much appreciated if you were able to help support us there, because that really does make a difference, so that would be awesome. And last but certainly not least, of course, we have got that sub button right above the video window, currently sitting at about 46 subs, I believe, at last check. So that is always one of the big things that we can do to help the channel as well. The more we're able to get some people supporting us by jumping over and subbing to the channel, as Carlos was nice enough to just do, the better for all of us. Now, quick note on schedule. We've got Esper Genesis going on tonight. We are starting a bit late. I'll explain why we're starting a bit late in just a second, but we will go tonight until right about midnight Eastern, so we will try to play for about 2.5 hours or so. Then tomorrow we will be back at you folks starting at 7 p.m. Eastern with some Curse of Strahd, and that's going to be happening again tomorrow evening. And then next week we have got more Adventures of Middle-earth coming at you in the morning, Tuesday, and then we have got Tuesday afternoon, we have got some GOG, Pen and Pixels, D&D with GOG. Storm King's Thunder is going to be coming at you on Tuesday as well. So we've got a lot of cool stuff that's going to be coming over the next couple of weeks. You're definitely going to want to check that out and support that as well. And I also have a little bit of an announcement that I want to make too. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of, where is it? This, and then I'm going to turn on this. 2 announcements, actually. So first of all, hi everybody. So first announcement. The first announcement is I'm sick. You might be able to tell from the pile of tissues and everything else. My beloved son decided, as plague bearer of the ARV household, that it would be a good idea if he decided to give this to his dad. So I have been walloped by a cold. I usually get sick maybe once a year. But when I get sick, I usually get walloped by the cold. So that means you're going to hear me coughing a lot. You will probably hear me swallowing occasionally and being like, type of thing. And I'm not the only one. We actually have a player group today that's a little bit sick. One of us just got over a cold. Another one is dealing with other illness and stuff like that. So we are the walking wounded. I believe Kat referred to this beforehand as the zombie apocalypse. So I was thinking about us as the Streaming Dead season 5. But anyway, so I'm just letting all of you know that I'm going to be doing the best I can, but I apologize in advance for sounding stuffed up and nasally and for coughing and for doing all that kind of good stuff. I apologize, but I am not sick, and you can blame my kid. I will get over it. I'll get through it. I've got my vitamin C packets, and I've got my plenty of water and liquid and all that good stuff. But still, so that's the one thing. Second thing is I wanted to make a quick announcement, which is to just let people know that I have now gotten enough information to be able to tease something which is going to be coming soon. On Friday, December 6th, which is 3 weeks from tonight, I am going to be making a big announcement. It is an announcement that is relating to publishing, but it's also an announcement which is going to have game ramifications, and I can't wait to talk more about it. So I will start setting that up more as we move closer to it. So the announcement will be made on December 6th, so you will not want to miss that. Friday, December 6th is going to be awesome, and I can't wait, and it's going to be super, super cool for all of that. So yes, that's happening on December 6th. And I think the only other thing I want to remind everybody about is next game right here. We'll give you this. This is my straw poll, which is right now the game that I'm going to be playing a week from Tuesday. It's between Frostpunk, Death Stranding, and Disco Elysium. And currently Disco Elysium has got the lead over Death Stranding and Frostpunk. So definitely get in your votes. I am going to close the vote down next Tuesday. So we have some time still, but I just wanted to let folks know that you can jump on board and do that as well. Now, having said all that, I am going to unmute myself so that they know that we are ready to go. And then I am going to unmute them. And then I am going to slide over there like this. And you see that we are almost all here, not entirely all here yet. One of us, Johnny Video Store Cowboy, will be joining us very shortly. He is dealing with traffic jams, which is what he gets for living in California, I think. So he's dealing with traffic jams and all that, but he will be with us shortly. And he is one of the people who is currently not dealing with illness, so that's nice that we have one of us who's like that, who's not either recovering or going into illness or in the midst of it or whatever. So he plays Aramis, and we will bring him on board when he gets here. So I'm going to move on along to, as has been mentioned, the birthday person of the hour, and that, of course, is our beloved Cat Rambo. Cat, good to see you. Happy birthday. Happy 23rd. I'm glad that you've almost gotten to the point now where car insurance will be cheaper for you. So I think that's great. You're almost not a liability risk for the companies anymore. So
almost.
Yeah. So it's getting there. But no, seriously, happy birthday. Did you do anything awesome to celebrate, or like what do you do for celebrations?
Gosh, I really didn't. I'm so boring. I just got back from a trip to Indiana to visit my family and do some stuff there. And so I was just so glad to be home that I just sort of sat on the sofa. This weekend that we're going to see a movie that I saw while I was gone called One Shot of the Dead, a Japanese horror movie.
Wow.
That I really highly recommend if you like really bad zombie movies. It's really funny.
I see. Okay. So.
Do you want me to say who I'm playing?
Yes, I was gonna say.
It's been so long, I've forgotten all the protocols.
Yes, exactly. No. That's good. It's a pleasure to have you back with us, and happy birthday. And yes, who are you playing today?
I'm playing Petra Sinis, an Ashenford Sentinel with a very large hammer.
With a very large hammer. That is very exciting. Oh, and I should have mentioned before that Kat will be joining us with the next Rambo Academy class. I believe we have it for Thursday the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. Kat, I think is when we have that set, but I'll double check.
We'll talk.
We'll talk.
Make sure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We'll double check, and you'll also see her for Hearts of Woodland as well. Yeah. But I am very excited to have Kat back here, and yes, there is definitely stuff going on with Petra and her character and the Hyperlance and a bunch of other stuff, so I can't wait to talk more about that. I also cannot wait to talk more about one of the other Walking Wounded besides myself, because he felt, he was like, listen, whatever, like, I'm not going to allow anyone else to share the glory of sickness. I am also going to be sick, so he just, but Carlos is on the mend. Carlos, I hope you're feeling somewhat better now, maybe. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Still muted.
Carlos, you're muted.
Carlos, you're muted.
Sorry, I've been trying not to cough all over everybody.
It's fine. So start again. Whatever you were saying, I'm sure was awesome, but start again.
Yeah. So 7 years ago. On last Wednesday, I turned in Sal and Gabby Fix the Universe finally after many grueling months, and super happy with it. But you turn in this 110,000 word novel after multiple revisions and months of labor, and so I turned it in, and I'm just you feel this elation, this I'm receiving the tablets on the mountain or something, and within hours I had pneumonia. Within
it was
hours,
waiting for you to finish.
Yeah.
It's all right, good now.
My body was just you can do it, Carlos, you can do it, and then promptly I got in my upper right lobe a sepsis. This is what they call it on the paperwork, and so basically I was recovering from sepsis, and Friday and Saturday were pretty darned miserable, but then they loaded me up with antibiotics, and so now, by comparison, it's just I maybe sound like John Keats after he's bogarted the bong a little too long, but other than that, I'm doing pretty darn well.
That's good. So I'm glad to hear that you were on the mend. There still will be a little bit of residual coughing. So if you'll hear coughing from both Carlos and myself.
Yeah, that's why I was muted. I wouldn't be
during the course of it. No, for sure. I do want to just quickly mention, by the way, that I was talking with my daughter about her birthday is in January. So we were talking a little bit today about what are we going to do for her birthday? So she has 2 ideas for a birthday cake. I mentioned that I finally had my birthday party 2 months late because that's how long it took to get enough people together to have it. But it was a good time. Anyway, so she made this Lonely Mountain cake, which was the coolest thing. Like, it's just this green mountain of a cake, and then like, cause she watches British Bake Off, and all this stuff, and so she like literally made Smog on the mountain, and then puts a candle in his mouth and brings him in, like brings the cake in with like the candle burning, like he's burning that, and Bilbo on the horse. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I was so shocked. So she loves The Hobbit as much as I do, and she's like, yeah, Daddy, for my cake, she's like, I'd like either the Hobbit cake or a Sal and Gabby Breaks the Universe cake. So I wanted you to know you are one of two.
Oh,
yeah,
my God.
Yeah, you are one of two cakes. And she said, do you think he'll be bothered if I choose the Hobbit one? I'm like, I don't think he'll be upset if he
Tell
loses
her
out
that is wrong.
to the Hobbit.
Tell her that I will be broken, weeping on her
I'm a broken
birthday.
man.
Tell her that's what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like when doves cry. Tell her.
Oh man,
And seagulls cry.
it was pretty funny. So I just wanted to let you know that's how much the book had an
so
effect
awesome.
on her. But no, I'm glad you're on the mend. Who are you playing today, Carlos?
I am playing Ludicrous Sleep.
No, you're not. No, you're not though.
Ludiclue.
Do you want prize with that? Yeah, so I'll be playing Ludicrous Sleep Well. Whose voice is changing apparently today.
Yeah.
He is a Catman, a medic, and a threat to everyone around him, but for the best of intentions.
Yes, with all the best of intentions. And by the way, for both Petra and with Sleepwell, with a couple of new powers, which I'm going to want them to talk about in just a minute, but because they are now level 6. But before we get there, we have to talk to a little bit to... Now, I did not know this because I had not seen him yet, but you will all notice that the picture that existed of Zach Clay in the video is now clearly out of date.
I am Zach's evil twin.
He's gone all corporate and stuff. Like, eventually he's just going to be like, yeah, guys, I got to wear the full vest and tie.
Company man.
The company man. Like, next thing you know. No, it's good. It looks good. Zach, how are you in life in the universe and everything? And how is the world with your new cut? I mean,
it's great. My mornings are about 20 minutes quicker. I get out of the shower and I'm like, oh, I'm done. Like, I don't have a mountain of hair to make look nice or an afro to make perfectly spherical, because that's a part of the struggle. But yeah, life is good. I'm just starting another audiobook and also doing my thing with teaching. So like today was our day where I have the student DMs come and we all talk about the things that were happening in their games and how to improve them and all that stuff. And then we had a lot of fun. I ran a portion of Curse of Strahd for them, which was very spooky. And
I was gonna say, you had to. I'm curious about how you backed that down a little bit.
I made it. The Strahd was he's focused on sucking chocolate, not blood.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
But I'm sure that would work if I decided to do it that way. But anyway, yeah, just still with the same old schedule, slowly where I can, trying to shift new things and new projects and things into my schedule and that kind of stuff. I want to eventually get back into my own stream, but I want to make sure that I come back and actually stay consistent with it. So there's some prep that's
continuity or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Some proper planning that requires, rather than just hopping in and being like, okay, I'm back. But yeah, anyway, I will be playing Cosmoritis or Cosmoritis, the Bellari Hunter. And I'm very excited about the prospect of not dying this episode. And that's all.
Yeah, we were joking about me being benevolent or not. I'm like, listen, I've sort of taken it easy so far. And it's like, it's Kaz is, Zach is like, during what times that Kaz was not dead over the last couple of episodes, like pretty much,
or not almost dead,
or not almost dead. So it'll be interesting to see how all that breaks down. But I cannot wait. So as I'm getting ready to fire up the music here, I would like it if each of you could quickly just tell maybe the cool new thing that you're most excited about. Because for example, when Kat was talking about the new level 6 for Petra, we were like, this is pretty awesome. So tell the fine people what you've won, Kat, for the people playing the home game.
So this is pretty nifty. I remember looking this up at the end of last week end of last session and being like, well, this is cool. It's a multi-user tactical display which is a fancy way of saying I can sync with nearby allies, providing them with an augmented reality display of incoming threats. Whenever I or a friendly creature within 10 feet of you must make a saving throw, the creature gains a bonus to the saving throw equal to your charisma modifier. And I will remind folks that I am a highly charismatic character with a +3.
Yeah.
And one interesting thing is that you must be conscious to grant this boon. It's not a innate thing. And after much discussion, we realized that it goes on all the time.
Yeah. Goes on all the time. There is a later version of this, a tactical display, which is even cooler and does even more stuff at level 10. So, yeah, so it's always on. And that's good because the crew is going to be running into some serious business. I mean, they've already run into some serious business, but even more serious
But now we're getting into more serious
even business. More serious. So that's great. I think that's a really cool level 6 power. So that's neat. Do you want to explain, Carlos, what Sleepwell, what cool new 6th level power you've got? This particular one that you told me at the end that we worked out, I think is really neat. The quick
so you know, as an engineer, I've been doing some few things with these little constructs that I've been sending out in front of us to look around and sometimes even to fight for us. Well, now I have available to me, you know, basically my own sort of like little posse. So I can keep up to four forged constructs going at the same time. They can be of medium size and of an appearance that I generally get to decide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one construct, basically a duplicate of each of the 4 main party members, so that basically, you know, there's sort of like mini versions of ourselves going around, and they have combat stats. They can follow good directions. They are very hard to hack because they are sort of like semi-conscious, and they've got blades and arm pistols attached. They're my rockin' crew.
Yep, they are pretty slick. So he's getting the band together. It's basically like the Ludicrous. It's like the Dave Matthews Band. So it's like the Ludicrous Sleepwell, you know, band where everyone just backs him up. Essentially,
right.
Is the way it works.
And I also have, just so you know, Zach, a resuscitate power where I can bring people back from the bed, dead, also from the bed.
I think it's interesting you singled out Zach for that knowledge.
You know, to 1 hit point. So I got you, man.
Okay, cool.
Good. As long as someone's able to do that, you know, can they follow bad directions? Somebody said, was it Echo? That said, oh no, Coven Guy said he's got an inspiration if Kaz tries to die again.
Yeah, so, I saw that. Thank you, Coven.
The chat's ready. I told you guys.
If I try to die again, because I've been trying.
Exactly. I think I told you guys that thank you, Shadow Mage, with a resub. 27 months. Holy cow, dude. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, Shadowed.
That's like a decade.
That's super awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it very much. Oh yes, and Carlos, you didn't hear, you may not have heard this, but again, thank you for the resub too. But what was I gonna say? It completely went out of my head because of that resub.
There's something about like Zach getting resuscitated.
Yeah, I don't. All right, it will come back to me. Do I have a cold? Yes, I do, Shadowed. You better believe it. I do have a cold. I am congested and coughing and not feeling super great, but I really wanted to play tonight. So I'll remember whatever the hell it was that I was saying at some point later. Exactly, blame Plague Bearer Bruce Lee. So I completely don't remember what I was going to say. It doesn't matter. So we've got those constructs going on, so that's going to be awesome. That's great. So Zach, why don't you talk a little bit about what Kaz has got at level 6? His new level 6 awesomeness.
Well, part of it, I don't think I talked about this yet. I may have, but I think I may have mentioned it, but I had a long series of questions about the Bellare and how they functioned, and specific questions about what they could do and whether or not my form could be amorphous, or how I'm supposed to be healed if I can't be healed by Esper power, so on. So I sent this list of like 16 or 17 questions to Rich, and Rich being the lead designer of
Esper Genesis. Yeah.
And he cordially replied after a while and answered all of the questions. And to most of which just reinforcing what was already in the book and giving me a better idea of what to do. But then a short time later, I think he reconsidered some of the things that I had mentioned And there was actually this was a kind of maybe probably a couple weeks ago at this point, but he actually made a blog post on Esper Genesis Alligator Alley Entertainment.com talking about a Bellare like revisit basically.
Oh, really?
And one of those new rules now in the core errata is that Bellare can actually be healed by all the same things as other people now.
Oh, nice.
So I don't have to die anymore.
Interesting.
So he said in this, since a Bellare containment suit has both mechanical and bioorganic traits, the biggest change is to allow healing from Esper powers and similar effects, while still keeping them susceptible to any attacks or abilities that can have specific effects on constructs and automatons. So I still get affected by things that target robots because I'm in a giant suit, but I can be healed. Since the suit is bioorganic, my suit can now be healed by normal
such
things.
a softie. He gets a celebrity. He's like, hey, look,
I guess so.
He's like, all right. Next thing I know, I'm gonna find out. Kat's gonna be like, yeah, I talked to them and they said that actually I can do two hammers, dual wield them at all times with no detriment. And
let me see. I don't need to breathe anymore. Apparently,
of course not.
So I can't sufficate. Unless I'm in breathing poisonous things, I guess.
Nor can I die.
And Bellare just can't die now. So
I have a button in my chest that says "win," and when I press it, I win.
Exactly.
I win the game.
Under damage, it just says immune. It just says
immune to Bellare are immune to all damage. In exchange, my intelligence is now 1. No. But yeah, so that was an exciting development. So I can. I think some of what I would want to do this episode, which we'll get into, I think all of us narratively wanted to talk about improvements we're making to our characters that are reflected in these mechanics. And one of those for me would be now Kaz figuring out how to watch it be there's a button on his suit that allows him to be healed by normal stuff that he's always had off on accident. So,
you know what, actually? I have a better narrative idea for that, sir.
Okay.
And I will tell you what that narrative idea is when it comes up. Because actually, I think,
the feature that I got at level 6 is much more simple and a little more background than it is for the other our other friends, and that is because as a hunter at level 6, because I've fought so many constructs, I decided to make constructs my favorite quarry, meaning I get benefits fighting them at all times. I don't have to choose. Every morning when Kaz wakes up, even though he doesn't need to sleep, he kind of chooses a creature type to make his quarry for the day, and constructs is just always on now. So that's cool, and that's all I got.
That's what he's going to do. So we were joking about the fact that constructs and automatons being different things. That the subtitle of this adventure is Automaton Apocalypse. So it was like, God damn it.
no,
not what I meant to do. But no, this is great, and I actually. Somebody asked me about because we've Curse of Strahd folks have been moving up in levels. Adventure Middle Earth people are almost level 6. So they were like, oh, now it gets a lot harder for the DM. I'm like. It gets even cooler because it means you guys get to do even more of your awesome epic powers, and that's good because you're going to be facing even more epic challenges. So you're not going to be slumming it, taking down some low-level thugs in the stations all your life. So that's great. I'm actually very excited to see some of these things in practice. So let us talk a little bit about what happened in our last session, and then get folks set up for what we're going to do tonight. So in our last session, the party has just managed to escape after destroying the Hyperion station, which was the source of, apparently, a secret virus that had been created, and actually not just that, the secret experiments of various kinds, that were taking place under the aegis of the Zephyr Corporation, which is a large conglomerate of corporations that has its tentacles, as it were, throughout the Silrain arc, and which is associated in some way with the Shadow Technocracy, although what the nature of those connections are is not entirely clear. And so the party was sent by two people, Abraxas, who used to work for the Zephyr Corporation, and then basically got burned, a la burn notice, and ended up having to fall off the grid, and then decided that he wanted to get revenge. And another character who is kind of a rival, sort of has these two characters have respect for each other but also don't trust each other, and that is Arisa Angel, who is a current employee of Zephyr Corporation but who has become increasingly troubled with the direction of the corporation, and so basically asked the party to more or less do what it was that Abraxas wanted them to do, which is to try to get actual information about the Zephyr Corporation's doings on this station so they can basically try to expose them. And so the party, not only because they wanted to do the right thing, but because they had their own information that they wanted to gather. Sleepwell, for example, wanted to know what it was that had happened to his father and why his father has been basically taken over by the Shadow Technocracy with apparently Zephyr Corporation backing. Cosmoritis wanted to know a little bit more about some of the bounties that he had originally been sent on in the past, why these things were sort of popping up in the way that they were. I should also have mentioned that Sleepwell is also connected to Alfred, the artificial intelligence that is connected to the Hyperlance, the party's super ship, and which a lot of the party is more nervous about than Sleepwell is. You know, Sleepwell loves Alfred and all that, but Alfred is very dangerous as an AI, and so they were concerned about him, and that also had some mysterious connection to the Zephyr Corps and the Shadow Technocracy. And Petra was also interested in this because Petra has had these increasing number of, I guess I would call them visions, in which she feels as if she has this kind of connection with specifically AI that seems to be coming out of the Hyperlance, that the Hyperlance keeps coming up and sort of making these, sort of talking to her and saying that it loves her and all these things that is like just really bizarre, and Petra doesn't understand what the hell is going on, but wanted to know a little bit more about it. And so the party, for its own reasons, went. They found there that the station basically had been largely destroyed by some creatures that had basically escaped. There were automatons and constructs that were roaming the station and killing any organic life that it came across, including a party which had been sent of Madokai, these mercenaries, which had been sent to try to basically shut down the station. Most of that party had been wiped out, and the one exception to that the party was able to sort of connect with before he too was destroyed was a creature named Ajax Chitaka, who was kind of this one of the lieutenants there of this Madokai mercenary group. They managed to create some kind of bond with him, and he ended up sacrificing himself to try to hold off this virus called the Long Winter. And as it turned out, this virus had basically infected much of the station, and the party feared might have also infected a couple of other things, like, for example, Alfred, like, for example, maybe even Kaz himself, although hopefully not, but maybe. And so all of these things sort of were weighing upon the party as they managed to get through the station. They ultimately did manage to destroy it and gather information, but it was a very near thing. Petra and Aramis managed to escape on the Hyperlance, along with Spindra, who was helping them, whereas Sleepwell and Kaz managed to use a dimensional pocket to literally get out before the whole thing blew up. And then that was just in time for the Madokai warship that was the reinforcements for that original team to show up with, as it turned out, Layden, the Madokai warlord, the mate of Ajax Chitaka, the previously mentioned killed Madokai who died on the station. And so Sleepwell and Kaz managed to convince them of their good intentions, and Arisa apparently knew something about this Madokai group as well. And so the party then was reunited back on Pelseros, and when we closed our last session down last month, the Sleepwell and Kaz had just arrived back with the warship of Layden's warship. Petra and Aramis had already arrived back at Pelseros. And they had gotten back to Pelseros, Sleepwell, and Kaz's on the Madakai's ship, and they found themselves facing the character of Arisa Angel herself. And so I now want us to jump forward slightly in time, basically by about an hour or so, to find that you are now sitting in the office, this, which used to be the office of basically the dock manager, you may remember, that you removed from power, let's say, and that now is in control of the people who run the station. And so I want to set the scene of Petra, Sleepwell, Cosmoritis, Aramis, and Spindra, who are currently sitting in this office. By the way, Rona and a couple of the others are not there. They are still sort of wandering around trying to, kind of get control of the station because there's still kind of leftover pockets of confusion and resistance. So they're out doing that. So it's Spindra, Petra, Sleepwell, Kaz, and Aramis who are sitting in the office facing two figures who are staring at each other much more than they are at you. And those two figures are Abraxas, flanked by two of his guards, and Arisa Angel, flanked by two of the Madakai. Now, these two characters, as has been made quite clear to all of you, do not like each other. And you can get that impression already from the way that they are just sort of glaring at each other, and have been doing so since all of you arrived in this room about 10 minutes ago. So you've all been sitting in very uncomfortable silence with these two staring at each other, and so I'm now going to hand things back over to the party. You're back in Pelseros. You have this information that you gathered from the now destroyed space station, and now you have to decide what to do with these two frenemies, so to speak.
I just wanted to jump in quickly here because I wasn't expecting the jump in time. One of the things that I had intended to do was to basically ream out and possibly disinvite Spindra from being part of our cohort anymore because of the way she was ready to abandon my own.
You can still do that.
Cat ass, in the last sequence that we had, and
yep.
How she would do that. And so, I'm not sure if we'd be sitting quietly now, sort of like watching a standoff until that had been resolved.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'm happy to move it back a few minutes then, because Spindra basically arrived in the room, because Spindra was with Petra and with Aramis. So she came in with Petra and Aramis, and I'm sure that you were like, oh, hey, Petra, Aramis, and then you saw Spindra, right? So so you can absolutely have that discussion if you wish, just, excuse me, before you go into the room. So yes, you can absolutely do that.
So I turn to Spindra, point in her face and say, I want her out of here. She's done.
And Spindra, throws up her hands. Why?
Because you were about to abandon me. You're a person who abandons team members. You haven't learned a thing from when we rescued you. Again, you were willing to sacrifice me before it was time to sacrifice. And guess what? I survived. Here I am. You have no imagination. You've locked yourself so much in your engineering kind of thinking, and you think you can calculate all the odds. You cannot. So you are out because you are a danger.
And so she sort of stares at you, and then she's like, so you're telling me, Sleepwell, you would rather have me wait where the station was going to explode in the hope that you were going to mysteriously reemerge from whatever place you were vanishing to, and thus destroy, and she points to Petra, and she points to Aramis, and then she points to some of the Hyperlance crew who are kind of looking, they're sort of like mommy and daddy are fighting, they're kind of shifting around and not looking. And she's like, you'd rather have me sacrifice them?
No, I'd rather have you out of the picture. I don't want you in the position to sacrifice anybody because you can't make good decisions. I'm still here. That is apparent. So with that prima facie evidence right in front of you, now retroactively review your actions. You would have killed me if you could have in that moment. Therefore, you were out of here.
Sleepwell, you have to understand.
I
what
have
she's
to
trying
understand
to say.
What? You rescued me, not her.
I know, I did. But she had to make the decision.
She made a bad one. And I'm sick of it.
If she had stayed to save you.
I'm sick of her betrayals.
If she had stayed to save you, all of us could have been dead. All of us. I would have wanted her to do the same thing if it was me.
Alive. I don't. Now you're speculating as to what you would have done. What you did in that moment, Kaz, is that you stayed outside of the ship and you waited until you could execute your plan. You rescued us. So you. I'm sorry, you're not telling the truth. That you literally did something different in that moment.
So she turns to you, Petra, and she goes, she says, I can't deal. What is this nonsense? She kind of is like sort of sputtering, and she's like, would it have been better if I had abandoned you to death? Would that have been smart if I did that?
Abandoned you to death.
And she's staring at you, Petra.
And Petra is going to draw herself up to her full 7 feet worth of height and fold her arms and say to Spindra, well, you certainly didn't waste any time making that decision. Perhaps a bit more dithering around, at least, would have.
The station was going to blow up in 10 seconds. What dithering did I have time to do?
You don't save people. You don't save people.
And
you don't rescue people. You look out for yourself. You abandoned us before. We came and rescued you at great personal risk, and you abandoned me again. I'm not going to make the same mistake.
And she sort of turns back to you, and you can see that her eyes are flashing also, and she says, the people behind me, and she jerks her thumb over her shoulder to indicate the Hyperlance crew, which is now attempting to melt into the floor. She says, these people behind me are only here, Sleepwell, because I saved them. I made a terrible mistake. I apologized and was sorry for it, which is why I went with you on this insane suicide mission to go to this station in the first place. But it's not my job to then hope one of your miracle rolls is going to come up double sixes again. So if you want to spend your time, Sleepwell, risking your life and every one of these people, you could do it on your own, but you don't have to bring me into it or accuse me of something from it. And she
agreed. We don't have to bring you. You're out. You are out.
She kind of turns and sort of says, I'm done with this. And she just sort of marches out. And like the Hyperlance crew is like, they like look towards her and then you, and then they kind of look helplessly at you, Petra and Kaz, and they're like,
Just, I say to the crew, just do what you want. We'll figure it out after. We need to talk to these other two.
And they're like, do the Homer Simpson back into the bush, like, sort of melt out of the way. Okay. And so she leaves. So you're now standing outside the door is where you were having this discussion of this room, Sleepwell. So if you want, any of you could, you don't have to, but you could say anything to each other that you want. And the only thing the change about the setup I had is that Spindra won't be in the room, but otherwise it'll be the same setup when you go in there.
Right. So I turn to Kaz and I say, I have not had a chance to properly thank you for taking that tremendous risk in the name of friendship and saving my life. So I wanted to show you what I've created. Come on in. And so I have the construct that looks about as close to Kaz as you can, except perhaps a little shorter. Okay. Come on in and march in. And it walks right up to Kaz and says, greetings.
Is this Alfred? This is Alfred. No. And I kind of try to take some of the armor off or like see if it's like a Halloween costume like or something.
No, I made this myself. We had a little bit of downtime, so I wanted to honor the whole team, the team that I actually believe in. And so
you made this Petra? On the Matakai ship?
I'm sorry?
You made this on the Matakai ship?
Yeah, they had.
That's why you were in your room the whole time.
We had a lot of downtime. So Petra, take a look at this. And they march in a robot that has a big hammer and an arm pistol. But it probably comes up to right about here on you, and it just looks up and says, "Greetings."
In that voice.
I see. That is one of the most awesome things I have ever seen.
I am so glad to see you, my friend. I honor you. and I march in the Aramis. But maybe we can replay this once Johnny shows up because I really want to see his reaction.
Yes.
So we can just hold this moment in abeyance.
Oh my God, I can't wait. Yeah, we'll ex post facto it when we get there.
Okay.
In the meantime, are you going to bring them in to
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The whole team, and also the cat-looking one. That's the sexiest of all. I'll add.
Right.
I really accentuated the hips on that construct.
That thing's got
to
some
sleep
prowl.
well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man. All right. So with the grace that only a Volna construct could possibly have. All right. So they walk in and follow you. I'm curious. Do you have each of them sort of like the main one and then the mini-me next to each of them as they walk in, or are you like including them in their own group?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
They
yeah,
each have
thick construct. I just had this image of suddenly you hear like a techno version of Brick House or something. All right. So you walk into the room with all of these, and you get a couple of, again, you would be getting a couple of looks from Abraxas and from Arisa Angel, but you're not getting that because they are too busy glaring at each other. There are, enough chairs around the room that you could probably sit down and sort of face them. And there is a very uncomfortable, silence. You can now actually, now that you see Arisa face to face, you can see that she has dark hair. She has this kind of heart-shaped face almost, and these large brown eyes. She does not look like a kind of the sort of hard ass that you've gotten sort of familiar to in terms of dealing with her. But the expression that she's got on her face is a different matter, because she certainly looks not pleased, and she and Abraxas are just kind of glaring at each other as you enter the room. And again, behind him, he has a couple of people from Pelseros, and behind her, she has a couple of the Matakai behind her, and specifically it's Layden, who is, of course, the Matakai warlord, and you may remember Kratos, who is the lieutenant, is also with her, and they're sort of, flanking her, and kind of sort of looking as impassive as it's possible to look for them, kind of as these two kind of glare at each other. And as you come in and sit down, like, the silence, which just is one of those oppressive, heavy ones, is not broken by your entrance. They just continue to kind of glare at each other.
Is Angel human?
Yes.
Okay.
At least she appears to be.
Right. Yeah. I look at the other two and see if they. I look like I'm about to say something, and I look to see if they have anything to say that might be more important. But
they.
Oh no, I'm talking to my party members here.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. No, okay.
I'm just admiring Mini Petra.
I turn to Arisa and Abraxas, and I say, "Hello, we're here."
And there's this sort of pause, and then Abraxas kind of, takes a long time to kind of tear his gaze away, and then he's like, "Hello, cuz. I'm glad that you made it back alive."
Yeah, me too. You guys realize that if you want to, pierce holes into each other, you use laser rifles, not your eyes. I know that this the saying is you can, it's not going to do anything. And also we all of us, and I gesture to my party, went through life or death scenarios, and not to poo-poo on what you guys were doing, but it was very convenient having you guys just on, little radios in our heads saying, "Yeah, you guys got it," when we all almost just died. So maybe get over your little feud and let's resolve these final issues, maybe.
And so there's a sort of moment's pause, and Arisa now kind of turns to face you as well. And Abraxas says, "You're quite right, Kaz. You're quite right that we treated you in the wrong way. It tends to be what happens when you get people working for Zephyrcore who suddenly pretend that they're not." And he kind of stares back at her. And Arisa sort of, resolutely ignoring him now, says, "What Abraxas means to say is that it's always great to be able to get people back when a plan actually works the way we intended it to, instead of just ad hoc improvisation. And she kind of glares back at him. And he's kind of like, listen, what this comes down to is you were all exceedingly lucky, and it's only because of your own talent and skill that you made it out of there alive. No thanks to this person, who is going to do everything she can to ingratiate herself to you, just so she can spring a surprise on you about a double spy. I'm working for the bad guys again. This is how she operates. And Arisa, whose voice now is cold enough that you can almost feel the temperature in the room dropping, says, and what Abraxas means there, in his childish and juvenile way, is that now that I've had the opportunity to review the data and see the information and realize the danger that Zephyr poses, if it were up to him, he would put aside one of his best assets towards destroying the company, all so he can take out his little pissing match on me. And so again, there's just sort of dead silence. And
have you guys ever considered that perhaps both of you are necessary?
And both of them at the same time, Abraxas says, what? And she says, what? Like at the same time. And then Arisa sort of smiles and she says, well, I see that some of your people, Abraxas, have figured out how to operate diplomatically. Something you never were able to figure out during your long tenure in the company. And Abraxas says, yes, I really didn't clean up well in the corporate boardroom. Can't imagine why. Perhaps I got tired of coffee being made off of the blood of people that you oppressed. And she just sort of, kind of, like, you could see her slightly flinch, like her resolve just slightly kind of drops a little bit, and she sort of shakes her head, and she says, the only reason that I have not ordered this entire station to be blown up, and she kind of side-eyes Abraxas for a second, she says, is one, because I would not want the innocent people of Pelseros to suffer, and two, because these fine individuals, and she looks at you, the four of you, don't deserve it. They are the only ones here who have been treated shamefully, and the only ones who deserve some information, some reward for what it is they've brought back. And Abraxas says, and the only reason they brought it back is because of what I was able to do to send them there in the first place. They did get stuff back. They do deserve credit, but no thanks to you. And they're, so there's kind of this moment of, they just sort of pause, and then Arisa says, I know that you said you had the information. Perhaps it would be worthwhile if we, she almost rolls her eyes, all had the chance to review it together. And Abraxas opens his mouth as if he's going to object, and then he kind of closes it and just sort of stares at all of you as if it's your call about what you want to do with it.
What do you think, Petra? I say.
Petra.
I'm sorry, I'm just not sure. I'm trying to think what Aramis would want us to do, and there's so many collisions and
Well,
I say, while we consider this, you did mention a reward of some kind.
And Arisa says, absolutely, I did. And she pulls out a couple of cred sticks, and she hands over these cred sticks to each of you. And she says, this obviously is not worth the amount of effort and energy and time that you put into this. And it's probably poor payment for almost losing your life on multiple occasions. But at least it's a start. My impression is that you've learned a great deal over the last, at least, several cycles, several weeks of time that I've known you, and so you might want to take some of that knowledge and put it to good use. On each of these things, you will find here 500 cubles each. That 2,000 cubles should be enough to be able to get you some decent equipment, especially if I can convince Abraxas to tell his his legitimate merchants, to give you all of the goods that you might require at a discounted rate. This is assuming, of course, they can afford to do it before the authorities find them and take back their hot merchandise. And Abraxas says, by which, of course, in her charming fashion, Arisa means that I have got the ability to get you some of this equipment. My gift to you doesn't require simply throwing money. I'm actually willing to give you a piece of equipment that you wish for free. And he folds his arms and looks very self-satisfied and stares back at Arisa.
I'm trying to figure out how to get these people to give us even more in the name of trying to outdo each other.
See the right words and you might.
That's right. That's right. I mean, well, this start, as you say, it is indeed, we have been through a great deal to be here, and this is a good start. A good start. And I see that each of you are giving what you can in your way, each of you with your limited resources, kind of at the same level of spending. Yeah. It's appreciated.
You can see they both look a little uncomfortable, like in particular Abraxas, who's kind of like, kind of looking around. And Arisa says, I think once we've had a chance to review the information, you might, perhaps if you will accept what it is I'm going to suggest to you. And Abraxas looks a little surprised at this, as if he hasn't heard this before. And she says, if you're willing to accept what I'm going to suggest to you, you might find the reward is very much worth it. You see, I've been paying attention to some of your own individual concerns, things that affect you, not simply running around and saving the universe as Abraxas would like you to. I understand that you have your own individual paths you need to travel. For example, you might want to know a little more about what connects you to the Zephyr Corporation, the Shadow Technocracy, and what has been done to one's parents. And she kind of raises an eyebrow at you, Sleepwell. And she says, I don't know the details. I wish I did. But I do know that there are some who do know those details. And I know where to find them.
I want to know that.
And she nods seriously, like she's like, yeah, she's like, I'm going to give you that information. And Abraxas says, sure, she'll give you the information, and then when you walk into a fire trap, will claim that she had no idea they changed the codes. You can trust these corps if you want. But if you were to listen to me, you might want to stay outside the normal channels. I also can track down some of this information, you realize, Sleepwell. And not just that. I can find more details about why it is that there are these, and he sort of gestures helplessly, AI running about, what exactly this intelligence is about, and why the long winter is what it is. That was no normal technovirus. There's something strange about it. And Arisa kind of says, well, that's the first thing you've said, which makes sense.
Speaking of which, we do have an unresolved issue with the Alfred. The Alfred is right now shut down in advance so that we don't cause any furtherance of this. But there is a possibility, fairly distinct, that Alfred has been infected with the long winter.
And they both, their eyes widen at the same time. And Abraxas says, Alfred? The Alfred, the one that you've been using, is infected with the long winter?
We're not sure. It seems at least probable enough that we shut it down for the time being.
And he says, what happens if the thing starts up again?
Well, I mean, it was a hard, physical shutdown. There's a kill switch, and so assuming that, that physical kill switch can't be activated accidentally.
He says, but Sleepwell, you just got off a station where all of those creatures were running after you, half of them constructs and automatons. Most of them might have had physical kill switches. It didn't make a difference for this. The long winter is not normal. I have no idea what it can do.
Well, that's what I need you for. we need to find out what we can do to remove and isolate it, if it's even in there.
And Arisa kind of nods and she says, interesting. It makes me wonder whether or not the Alfreds were part of this communication and distribution protocol to begin with. And she says,
It seems likely, I say, just because of the way in which the Alfred was infected. It seemed as though the Long Winter knew the Alfred so well that it could infiltrate where nothing else could.
she says, would you be willing to give us some of the information, the data that you found, so we can take a look at it together? What I'm about to tell you isn't going to make sense unless we have context for it first. Sorry, that was the wrong voice. That's me with a cold. Unless we have context for it first, says Arisa, not Abraxas. Sorry. Oh, man.
So I say, well, that really depends on how well we're all going to be working together. I think what Petra, and Kaz, and Aramis all want is basically an alliance, however uneasy it's going to be right now, in order to beat a common foe. And anyone who betrays us, well, you know, we're really good at blowing things up. And
Really good.
You know, we're really good at it. So
Yeah.
I think at this point, what I would prefer is gathering all of our expertise together toward the common goal.
And they sort of look at you, and then they look at each other, and Arisa sighs long and heavily and says, you realize he's speaking the truth, don't you, Abraxas? And Abraxas kind of grunts. And then, yes, Freledol, he's making sense. And he says, fine. We work together on this only, and I will have every protocol and backdoor open to this, Angel. I want you to know that the minute one of your goons gets in there, I will know about it, and there is no limit to which I will not follow. And she raises a hand and she's like, you can spare the extra threats taken from bad Western films that you watched in your spare time. I would have thought you got over those by now, Abraxas. No, I'm not going to betray you, because I'm not even working for Zephyr Corporation anymore. And she gets angry, and then everyone, like the Madakai, are like, like for the first time they kind of look at her, and Abraxas is like, what frelling nonsense is this? What do you mean you're not working for them? And Arisa kind of leans back in her chair, and she looks a little bit shaken almost, which is very unusual for her. And she says, if you can share the information you have, we promise that we'll work together, and then I promise I'll explain. But it's not going to make sense unless we see what happened on that station. And Abraxas kind of shrugs and looks back at you. You, collectively, you. And then blows his nose. That's just me.
I believe we have what they call in official circles a détente. So at this point, we can start having conversations and sharing information. So I guess one thing we should do is share whatever we got off that friggin' station.
Okay, so you give them you give them basically this chip, and they have a large kind of this is for Zach's benefit, a large 32-inch curved monitor in their.
Thank you.
No, they have this large monitor that's actually in the office, and they put the chip in, and then Braxis, his hands in the practiced way of a hacker sort of glide over these keys, and pretty soon you're beginning to see some aspects of these things sort of flying a bunch of numbers. And then you see this moment where he sort of stops, and you don't really know what you're looking at. It looks like a bunch of numbers, but suddenly on the screen, this big map of what looks like the Silrain Arc basically shows up. And you can see that there is one pulsing, almost like a little sonar, like a ding, ding. There's no noise, but you can sort of see it visually.
I imagine the noise.
Yeah, if you wish, you can always.
I
do
see
that.
noise.
I see noise. And actually, you know what? I think I will bring you folks over to the galaxy map so you can see the equivalent of this. And let me. Okay. So. Okay. And the pulse is coming from here.
Ooh.
Now that thing you're looking at right there is Sol. And in case anyone is curious, that is a major galactic system. It is a galactic system within which you will find various systems, including a little system called the Milky Way, and a set of planets that might be familiar to all of you in another world, perhaps. In the ancient days, they referred to these planets as things like Jupiter and Venus and Mars and Pluto. Yes, it became a planet again, as was forsaken in the prophecy.
Yes.
And Neptune, etc. And a blue-green, insignificant planet where a lot of folks got their start, known as Earth. And so the pulse is kind of just continuing as you're watching it. So Abraxas kind of leans back and looks at the screen and then looks over to Risa, and she says, "Well, what is that supposed to mean?" And he says, "It means that it's got a signal, Arisa. You know what that means." And she kind of doesn't say anything, and then he looks back and he says, "This is a signal that is demonstrative of the long winter. As we suspected, the long winter is not destroyed. It is at least destroyed in the station that you removed it. From what I can tell, there used to be 2 pulse signals on this map. Now only 1 remains, but it's back here, and it's powerful. This signal here, coming from Sol, is powerful enough that it could be spread through various interchanges and jumps and wormholes. And perhaps, I suppose, although I don't know the details of this, other technological means, perhaps, to get that signal spread to other places. I don't have any idea why they want to do this, but it looks to me as if this is a broadcast signal of the virus itself." And good night, Echo. And so Arisa kind of, her eyes widen slightly, and then she nods slowly and she says, "That makes sense then." And she kind of looks thoughtful, and Abraxas says, "All right, now that you've had a chance to see that, and I haven't even shown you all of the details about the bio-horrors that were being worked on here, why don't you explain a little bit what your supposed ex-employer was up to?" And Arisa sighs, and she says, "Any of you ever heard of a man named Laris Baludan?"
It sounds very familiar. The last name.
And she says, "Yes. Baludan is the head of a branch of the Zephyr Corporation. But I didn't know about his existence, or at least about his existence in the Zephyr Corp, until recently. When you went off to the station, and as I was beginning to gather information about it, it struck me that there was something very wrong about what was happening not just at that station, but in Zephyr Corporation overall. I was, at a time, their #1 troubleshooter. It was my job to find flaws in the pattern, and I found them all right. This man, Laris Baludan, is the head of a rogue branch of the Zephyr Corporation. It's unclear whether Zephyr Corps is pretending that they're rogue to keep attention off of them, or whether they just had the branch go rogue and then pretended that it wasn't a problem so they didn't have to deal with the consequences. But either way, they've been off on their own, And from everything I can tell, they've been testing an experimental string of stolen data in attempt to recreate and perfect something. I knew that it was something related to some technological advancement. But if what you're saying is true, Abraxas, this might be that very thing. And that means that what they're trying to spread is a version of the Long Winter, a powerful version of it. The only thing I knew about it is that many of our reporting stations that we had on the planet Earth, in the station, in the system of the Milky Way, in the galaxy of Sol, has gone silent. We haven't had reports from them for a while. But just before they went silent, the last report that came into us said that someone had gathered information and technology that would allow them to advance the cause of this rogue branch. The only name that we got before the signal stopped, and I haven't heard from them since, is someone named General Blatt. And, repeating over and over again before it went dark, Sector 77. And Abraxas kind of chuckles. Sector 77. Lovely. Now, if any of you want, you can make for me, please, let's see, I'm going to have you make a...
Make a pie. We can make a pie.
Have you make a pie. Let me have you make a lore check for me, please, to see if you are able to remember anything about Section 77, because this is famous.
14 for me.
17.
Good thing I'm famous. So I rolled a 13.
13. Okay. So I would say, Kaz, you might have heard vague things about something about Sector 77, something like this sort of legendary place that was destroyed or something, but you don't know a lot of details about it. You know a little bit more than that, Sleepwell, because during your travels you've actually heard people on occasion making jokes about it, like, oh my god, it's worse than being exiled to Sector 77, that kind of thing. But you never really knew exactly the details, except that it had something to do with Earth. But you, actually, Petra, know more about this, and you happen to know more about it through the person who always knows where all the trouble is, and that's Tazora. Because Tazora, back in the day, not only knew about it, but brought you to, at one point, Sector 77. You didn't go far into it, because she kind of was sort of like, these were back in the days where it was all about thrill-seeking, and she's like, look at this, and then you got there and realized that this is insane, and what are you doing? But that's basically what it is. From what you remember of it when you went there, Sector 77 was once a thriving residential and industrial district, which was situated hundreds of meters below what was known in the 20th and early 21st century as New York's Central Park. And below these things, there was this residential and industrial district, and there was a lot of stuff going on down there, including a lot of light industry, a lot of early biotech stuff was done down there. And one of the reasons they did it there is because they were able to skirt, regulations, basically, that above ground would have required. And it was like, it's underground, what's the big deal? For modern versions of this, or I should say contemporary versions, think fracking. What's the big deal? We'll just go underground and, create a bunch of stuff and hope that earthquakes don't take over. I mean, I'm sure it's fine. But about 20 years ago, and you ended up visiting this place probably about 15 years ago, about 20 years ago, a massive tremor hit the sector and basically tore it in two. And from what you remember, from what Tazora told you about anyway, a highly contagious bioengineered virus escaped from a research lab which had been below this area in Sector 77 and decimated the population. The city basically sealed the entire area off, and those remaining in Sector 77 were left to fend for themselves. So by the time you arrived there, about 5 years after this disaster had happened, Sector 77 was well known for being like the place that you would go in to kind of test your nerve and sort of, see if you could survive the roaming gangs there. And supposedly there was also a lot of valuable stuff because a lot of companies had left behind all this valuable merchandise and equipment. But it certainly wasn't worth all of the nonsense that you were going to find there. There were all kinds of rumors of like weird creatures that were sort of bizarre combinations of bio constructs with synthetic and all sort of irradiated, and there was a lot of just bad stuff that was wandering around there, plus gangs and things like that. But the other thing that Sector 77 became, and this is why Tezora had interest in it too, was those who wanted to escape the attention of the law. It's sort of like Pelsaros, but larger and more freaky, and where there are even fewer questions asked, which, knowing what you know of Pelsaros now, is, saying quite a bit. And so that's what you know a little bit about Sector 77. And so as Abraxas is chuckling about this, you're sort of, all that kind of passes through your mind, Petra. And you can either reveal that or not to others if you wish. I mean, or you can just say like, oh crap, what? Or, whatever. But that's the knowledge that you would have of this.
I will cue Kaz and Sleepwell in and Aramis on what I know, with sundry ill-favored remarks about Tesora and her foolishness in taking me there.
And Abraxas nods and he says, "Wonderful. So, what do you want these people to do? You want to send them in to Sector 77? And Arisa sort of shrugs and she says, if Baladin is working there, and if whatever these people are working in Sector 77, then they've got essentially free reign to perfect this technovirus the way they want. Once they have a chance to do that, once they get this into this emitter, whatever this thing is that keeps pulsing here, you know what happens next, Abraxas. Right now you have a shut down Alfred. Already there's fear that it could come back to life at any time, that the kill switch isn't going to work. How much longer is it going to take before all the ships in the Silrain Arc get shut down in the same way or taken over? Would you like to see the Hyperlance going around under control of whatever the hell that thing was on the station? Under the control of Baladin? Or the Shadow Technocracy? Or whoever's in charge of this rogue area, even if that's what it is? You know what we're talking about here. We're not just talking about the end of a station or the end of a couple of ships. We're talking about all of it, Abraxas. The entire Silrain Arc, taken over by an insane, driven, and impossible to stop AI known as the Long Winter. And sort of a heavy silence falls after those last words, and Abraxas sort of leans back and looks exceedingly angry, although it's not clear at whom, just sort of angry in general.
So, what was this thing about a General Blatt?
She says, I don't know any of those details. The only signal that came through to us was something about General Blatt and Sector 77. Who the hell knows what it means? It could be a drunk Promethean who managed to hack into some messaging systems. I don't know. But it's the only lead that we have. And now that I see this, and she points at the pulsing, thing up on the screen, it proves to me that there's got to be something going on. That thing is cued off of the planet of Earth. We need to get a little bit closer to see exactly what the location of it is on Earth, but it seems to make too much sense that it's likely to connect together with what I already know. And if you're going to create something like this where no one's going to notice it, that area of Earth is a place the authorities don't know well. It's been abandoned for at least 20 years now. Who only knows what stuff happens there? There is no structure of law there at all. You're muted, Sleepo.
So what makes this a mission for a small strike team instead of, say, a full paramilitary assault?
And she nods and she says, I thought about that. Here's the problem. And she sort of looks over at the screen, and then she says, Abraxas, would you be so kind as to bring up a map just by itself without the pulse emitter? And so he kind of does that and creates the system. And she's like, right. Now can you overlay it with Zephyr Corp current holdings. And he sort of pauses and then presses something, and you see popping up all over the map, just red dot, 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 right, all over the place, and clusters of them around certain areas. And she points at that and she says, all of these places have not only industrial holdings of Zephyr Corporation, but armored groups too. We send in a full army to this place, they're going to know it. There is no chance that even if we manage to assemble every authority that we can find across the Silrain Arc, that we'd be able to take down the Zephyr Corporation all at once. That's one of the reasons I wanted us to do this in the first place, to go to this station. It was the only way that I could think of to start undercutting Zephyr Corps. We'll be able to take some of this information and use it to discredit them. That's how we start gaining power over them again. People will turn away from them. People will start coming forward. We'll have whistleblowers, for example. Some of the bravest people, by the way, that exist are these whistleblowers. I think we can all agree. And everyone kind of nods at each other. No, I'm just kidding. There's some real patriots.
We spend 10 minutes in game talking about how great whistleblowers are.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really important. We don't never need to know about them though, because all their information was separately corroborated. She's like, "That's right," and we also.
That's the only point at which Abraxas and Angel will agree.
Right. They completely agree. Totally. They actually high five each other.
They actually get along. Yeah.
So no. But she says, so that's the problem, Sleepwell. We bring an entire army in there, they're going to know it, and even if we somehow manage to fight them off temporarily, it means that they're going to bring everything they possibly can down on it. It's possible that Zephyr Corp doesn't even know about this. In fact, it might even be likely. They don't even know about this pulse emitter. That gives us an advantage. If they do know about it, they haven't brought all of their other mercenary forces around Earth to try to get it back, at least not yet. And if they don't know about it, then we have a chance to get to it and shut it down before they find out. And if we can gather more information about this thing, we can further discredit them. Abraxas says, as far as that goes, we could even reverse hack it. Maybe we turn the long winter into something else. How about, puts his hands behind his head, the short summer, for example. Except run by a certain enterprising computer hacker who's the best at his job this side of the Silrain Arc. And Arisa
I can tell you put some thought into that one.
And he nods smugly. And Arisa, rolling her eyes a little bit, says, regardless of any of this, it's not going to work if we go, I think, with a direct approach. I do have a contact there, a place that we can try to get to that might actually give us a little bit of a, well, at least a starting place. And if you're willing to do so, I think we can actually send some support with you. And she kind of looks back over her shoulder at Layden and Kratos. And Layden, after the one thing where they mentioned stuff and they looked at each other, other than that, they've remained impassive. But at this, you notice that Layden is sort of like, remains sort of impassive. But you can see that Kratos looks a little bit irritated. And you may remember that all along, Kratos has been a little bit annoyed, Kaz and Sleepwell, at having to deal with you folks in a way that Layden has not been in the same way. So yeah. Kratos looks a little bit annoyed, but, Layden is kind of like still impassive. And Arisa looks back down and says, I'd be willing to send some of my people with you to be able to provide support. I don't know how much support we can give you, but they'll do everything they can. The problem is, she says, I can't go back there. And Abraxas says, of course not. Why? You might give up the ghost a little bit? And she says, no, I might be noticed as the chief troubleshooter, now ex-troubleshooter of Zephyr Corps, if I'm going back to a place with a group of other people, which has apparently, for all counts and purposes, been abandoned by places like Zephyr Corps. That might stand out. Or have you forgotten everything of what it means to be a hacker? And she kind of looks at Abraxas, and he just kind of shakes his head and falls silent. And so she looks back at you and she says, if you're willing, I can send you there after we've had a chance to equip you, of course. And if you're willing to do it, we might be able to get to the bottom of what this thing is, who's making it, and how to keep it from being spread across the Silrain Arc. And it's not just, of course, our galaxy that'll be affected. It means everything in it. The Hyperlance, maybe even Alfred. And she kind of glances at you, Sleepwell.
I turn to Abraxas and say, well, so for this short summer idea to work, you would have to be making some inroads basically now on the long winter. And we may have the long winter isolated and unable to do any. So a perfect petri dish, if you will, inside of Alfred. What I think would be a good use of your time is if you took a look at Alfred and see if you could start figuring out how to purge and or reverse engineer the long winter, so that then you can make some progress on this idea of perhaps repurposing the machine to better ends.
And he nods and he says, I think that's an excellent idea. I can get started on it immediately. And Marisa says, wait a minute. You're going to let Abraxas loose with Alfred? The last time he had a plan for you, it ended up with a blown-up station and almost 2 of you, at least 50% of you, dead. You really think that he's going to be able to handle something like the Alfred without destroying half of Pelseros? And Abraxas is like, well, we could also have them go back to your official contacts. Maybe if you send a form in triplicate asking the corporation nicely, they might be kind enough to give you all the information you could ever need, and would be happy to provide you easy access to this pulse emitter of yours. Would you like to go through official channels exactly? And she kind of gestures sort of half angrily, and then she says, fine, you can do what you like with Alfred, but I wouldn't trust Abraxas more than I could throw him. And he says, you could always throw me as far as you wished, darling, as you know.
So yeah, like I was saying, Abraxas, take a help Alfred. And in the meantime, I think we need to know more information about how we can approach, without being detected, how exactly we're going to make contact, and what a plan actually looks like on the ground.
And she nods and she says, absolutely. I like the idea of planning. I would everyone were involved in that idea as much as Sleepwell happens to be. And she stands up and she kind of looks around the room. And then she points to the map and she says, Sector 77, as we said, is dangerous, but there are plenty of other sectors on Earth which, if a little bit run down, are well suited as a staging area. I have a contact there in Sector 48, a trendy bar. You'd like it, Abraxas. It's called the End of the World. And Abraxas kind of nods. He says, I've heard of it, except the last time I remember it, it was some kind of strange children's place. She says, that's just the look. The decor is designed to be, what do they call it? Child chic, I think was how they referred to it. And he says, having run a little bit of a bar myself here on Pelseros, I think I know something about the way that a public-facing bar ought to look. But yes, the End of the World is a bar that has more than just the front of it to look at. There's lots of contacts, supposedly, that are there. And you might be able to gather some information. Who is this contact of yours? And Arisa says, I don't know very much about her, except that her information is good and has been consistent. I've been working with her for several years now. Her name is Marinsa. Marinsa, yeah. And so it's excuse me, Marinsa. And she sort of, looks at that, and so it says Marinsa, and Abraxas shrugs and says, I've never heard of her, but that doesn't mean anything. There's plenty of people there that come and go. You sure this person isn't a Zephyr Corp trying to get you back into their web, assuming that I believe this story of yours that you've left them? And she says, no, I have no way of knowing for sure, except the information that they've given me is enough to have done substantial damage to Zephyr. I doubt very much that Zephyr would do all of that damage on itself in the vain hope that someone was going to walk into a trap of theirs. It's a lot of revenue and a lot of corporate people that are going to be asking questions. So I think her information's good. And in any event, all she's asking these folks to do is to meet her there. Or that's what I would ask her to do. You make a contact there, she should be able to give you more information about what Sector 77 looks like on the ground. And I may have a few other tricks up my sleeve. First of all, some of the Matakai, again she indicates them. And secondly, some of the equipment that you might be able to get here that we can give you before you head off that way. I can also get you some credentials, corporate credentials that ought to get you into some places that hackers can't reach.
All right. I do have some questions, some clarifications, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So you're saying that this ping is coming from Sector 77, but
she says, I don't know that. I know it's coming from Earth, and if I had to put two and two together, I'd say it's likely to be coming from Sector 77 because that's what the signal about Blatt kept saying. So.
Oh, they're two separate signals.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I only knew about this signal, she says, pointing at the screen. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, they got rid of that. But when the pulse emitter was on there, she says that she only knew about that once Abraxas looked at the information that you folks got back from the station.
Mm-hmm. So you also said the reason why we wouldn't want to encroach with a larger force is because then Zephyr Corps would find out what we were doing and then bring all of their forces. So Zephyr Corps doesn't actually know that the Long Winter is here at that location.
She says if they do know, they're keeping it an awfully tight secret. I wonder if this rogue branch of theirs, which, as I say, Zephyr publicly doesn't even want to acknowledge exists, is actually doing the work. It is possible that it's a trap and this is all a setup, but as I say, Zephyr is a lot of things, but profit unconscious is not one of them. They've lost a lot of money by revealing all this information, and I don't know whether they'd be willing to lose this much just so that they could get rid of a couple of troublesome flies.
So you're saying that a small branch of Zephyr Corps is creating this large AI, highly contagious, bioengineered virus type thing called the Long Winter, and that Zephyr Corps kind of has the same goal as us, is they want to find it and they perhaps don't want to destroy it, but bring it into their full control instead of their rogue branch's control.
I think you've more or less got it right, and that's why the Matakai were originally sent, Layden and her party, to deal with the situation at the Hespera. The station back there was not necessarily totally under their control, and I have a feeling that many people in Zephyr Corps would have been horrified if they knew what was happening. And Abraxas kind of snorts at that, but he doesn't say anything.
All right, I understand now. My larger question, which is something I think all of us have wondered for a long time, is what exactly is Zephyr Corps? Would you describe it as a terrorist organization? What does it do?
And Abraxas again sort of smile. He gets this, like, I will use this language, a shit-eating grin on his face, and then turns to Arisa and just sort of, with his arms folded and waits. And Arisa, sort of trying to ignore him, kind of, says, Zephyr Corps began as a small tech corps. It was a startup, basically. It actually began on Earth. At the time, it was involved in doing personal mobile platforms, essentially. People that could travel from place to place using these strange kind of hoverboards.
I thought you were mobile as in like phones. I was like, Zephyr Corps was once Apple?
Yeah. No, physical mobile. She says, hoverboards, that sort of thing. And she says, but then they diversified. And she says, they bought up Apple a long time ago. No. She says, but then they diversified. And they started buying more and more. They began to broaden out to hover cars and then rockets. And then at some point, they got involved with weaponry and the movement of small arms and munitions. And then they began to supply larger ones. So that by the time we got to where we are now, Zephyr Corps is a large technological corporation which has several branches to it. One branch is the one that they show to the world. And Abraxas sort of snorts and he says, yes, Zephyr Corporation, providing a better future by creating an exciting present. One of the stupidest slogans I ever heard. And she sort of half smiles at that, and she says, I didn't make it, but in any case, that's not where the real power is. Zephyr Corps does secret research. No one knows where all of their funding comes from, but one of the secrets of Zephyr Corps is that it's multi-funded. Lots of governments get involved in doing it, and even some smaller organizations. I don't think Pelseros ever got involved, but Pel Tavaria for certain has done work with Zephyr Corporation before. The Hyperlance itself was built thanks to a Zephyr Corps initiative. And of course, and she kind of sighs, there's other shadowy money that I've never been able to figure out exactly the source of it. That's one of those things you start asking too many questions and you get security clearances revoked, and that's just for starters. But there was something going on, something more recently, where they began to do things that seemed unusual. I noticed it from my position. It's what got me suspicious in the first place. I started asking questions, and Zephyr Corps hates asking questions. I think part of those questions had to do with some business of yours, and she kind of looks at all of you. I believe you had something to do with the destruction of a certain base, perhaps? And she kind of looks at all of you. I don't know whether you know any of that, but, well, you bothered some people with that action, or at least whoever actually did it bothered people, and there began to become some concern over what was going to happen if some of this information that Zephyr doesn't like to reveal came out. Whether there's an actual criminal element to it, I can't say, but they certainly have never had any difficulty tracking down money or funds for their research.
Okay. Next question, even larger than the first, is what do you... we can talk more in depth about this later, I suppose, because I also have one other question after this. But what is the Zephyr Corps in comparison to the Shadow Technocracy?
And she kind of raises an eyebrow and she says, well, the Shadow Technocracy, of course, is a completely criminal organization. Some people think it's a myth. And Abraxas growls, stupid people, you mean? And she says, possibly. But the Shadow Technocracy has never even been identified as such. It's part of what makes it what it is. It's not like it has a home base or a planet with a big sign above it. They're in and out of different places. And they're on a number of places where Zephyr Corps also has holdings. But that doesn't mean a whole lot. Zephyr Corps, as you saw before, has holdings everywhere. Does that mean that they are branches of the Shadow Technocracy, or that the Shadow Technocracy is a branch of them? I couldn't possibly say. And Abraxas says, I can. There's more than enough smoke to be producing fire. The Shadow Technocracy is in bed with Zephyr, one way or another, whether you know it, Ursa. And for a change, Arisa doesn't, roll her eyes. She just kind of shrugs, maybe.
All right. One last question. And I may be throwing both of you for a loop here. You may not know anything about this, but a long time ago, when Petra and Aramis and I first met each other back in a ship, we and our first dealings with Alfreds and so on, and our old friend Leo, we heard about this other organization called Metal Siren. Do you either of you know anything about that organization?
And so Abraxas and Arisa both sort of look at you with a little bit of sort of surprise, and then Arisa looks at Abraxas, and Abraxas nods and he says, well, well, what have you found out about Metal Siren? Anything other than they're an organization?
Well, I'm pretty sure we fought some people from them. We heard that they were like free agents or bruisers or espers that work for the highest bidder, but they could somehow have been related to the Shadow Technocracy. I'm not sure. They were kind of our first nemesis.
And they nod, and Abraxas nods, and he says, that begins to explain a whole big deal. And he sort of does a couple clicks on his keyboard, and you see a couple of pictures show up. And the first picture is this Promethean who has this very sort of looks like very sort of hip and trendy, this sort of long flowing red hair and this sort of awesome looking outfit. Not the Promethean you're thinking of, maybe. Not that Promethean.
Well, for a second, I forgot that Aramis was Ashenforged, and I thought he was Promethean. I was like, "Oh, it's Aramis before
no.
he was an adventurer."
No, I thought you meant Louise's old character, but no.
Oh,
but no.
yeah.
So he sort of shows this person who's like, "Do you recognize this person?" Now, all of you, even if you've lived under a rock, would know who this person is. This is the pop music icon, a woman named Selexi Sunfire. And this is like
Celeste.
so this is the biggest deal of big deals, okay? Like this is, Taylor Swift combined with Justin Timberlake combined with pre-jumping the shark
Right.
Kanye West. Like this is this is like the person, right? But Selexi Sunfire used to play to sold out planetoids. She would basically play in front of like audiences of millions and stuff like that. It was a big deal. But she has not been seen on tour for the past 6 months or so. Nobody actually knows what's happened to her, and there's all kinds of speculation about maybe she's retired, maybe she's just trying to like build up excitement for a new tour or a new album or something like that. So that's what you know about Selexi Sunfire. And it's weird because you're having this big discussion about stuff with the galaxy, and then it's like, here, let me show you a picture of Kendrick Lamar or something. You're like, what is this?
Of Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, but anyway, so Abraxas kind of points it out. I was like, so you know this person?
Of course, lots of Bellari like her new song called "The Journey Home."
I'll bet they do. You'll be sorry to hear that you won't be getting any more from it, because Selexi is dead. Has been dead. What? What? Dead for the last 5 months at least. No one really knows how it happens, or how it happened, but I think I figured out why. And he sort of clicks a bunch of buttons and he says, all of these things you see on the Silrain map, and you see, like, again, the planets begin to glow, except this time blue. And he says, all of these items are places where she had her show. And you see the show. And in each of these shows, soon thereafter, there was some enormous and disastrous tech leak, data breach. I happen to hear a lot about it in my line of work, and I'm talking millions and millions of bits of information were being taken, millions of Cubal on the line each time. Information came down through the nets that the reason this was happening was that some connection was being made with her. Of course, most of the stupid people thought it was because her concerts were such a big deal that people were distracted and it let other hackers get in. It took someone else to realize that there must have been more to it. And he kind of shows the concerts and then shows her again, and he looks at Arisa, and Arisa nods slowly and she says, yes, we found out some information about her as well. Almost certainly, the metal siren you were talking about was not an organization. It's a person. And she points at Selexi Sunfire. This was Metal Siren. And Abraxas kind of nods, and he says, what I don't understand is why that has anything to do with all of you. And Arisa says, that's because you don't know where this virus came from in the first place. Before Baladin went dark, there was code stolen. Code stolen from someone who would later turn out dead. And Abraxas kind of looks at her like, her? And Arisa shrugs and she says, can I say for certain? No. But you do the math. You said yourself she does concerts in all these places. Then there were data breaches. We find out that she's Metal Siren. Then she's dead. And within a month afterwards, this branch is working on a new version of this incredibly advanced technovirus. And they're doing it in secret. And Metal Siren, of course, is nowhere to be found. And Abraxas kind of sort of slowly looks back at all of you and says, if that's true, it means that they took her information, killed her, and have used this as the foundation for the long winter.
Well, that opened up into a Pandora's box I didn't know was there.
Holy smokes.
Okay. I think I'm ready for a break. I think we have a good grip on what we need to do. Or, at least what our next galaxy-saving escapade is going to be. But I think we could all, unless there's anything more you two need from us, I think we would. Petra, please go ahead.
I think we have some shopping we need to do.
Yeah. Oh, some funded shopping, if I'm correct.
And Abraxas nods and he says, "Indeed, while you were gone, I haven't been idle. Not only have we been gathering some attention to Pelsaros and making sure that everyone's on board, but we've also been gathering some merchandise that had been repurposed for other use. I think you'll like what we've discovered." And he says, if you'll head off just now, we'll take you to where you can do some of this shopping. And he kind of stands up, and Orisa says, "I think with the cubal that I gave you, you should be able to purchase what you need. But again, make sure that before you leave, you stop by and see me again. I'll be able to give you the information you need on their identity badges. That will give you some Zephyr clearance. I've got to warn you, it's not going to be the most new information that's available, because obviously I don't have access to that anymore. But at least it ought to get you through a lot of people who are lazy and don't check carefully, and that stands for a lot."
It can be an older code so long as it checks out.
They might be about to pass you at that moment. Okay. So, assuming then you head off with them to do this shopping, this is a good moment for me to pause and say welcome everybody to day 34 of Esper Genesis Viral Fallout. We are sponsored by Alligator Alley Entertainment, and it is our great pleasure to have with us 3 players. I was hoping we would have 4, but I think Johnny has gotten buried in this traffic that he's back from. And so we have with us Kat Rambo as Petrosinis, Carlos Hernandez as Ludicrous Sleepwell, and Zach Clay as Cosmoritis, bringing our role-playing Esper Genesis stylings to you as we try to do here twice a month. If you like what you hear, please follow us here on the channel. Please support our Patreon, and please follow all of these individuals in their various doings, whether it is on Twitch or whether it is elsewhere. Buy Carlos and Kat's books, buy all of them, buy them repeatedly, buy them early and often, and make sure that you support everything they do. And in Zach's case, make sure that you support him and keep bothering him to start streaming again, so that people can get back on board doing that as well. Hey, Mrs. Dunsel. But welcome everybody. We are going to be running for another about 50 minutes or so. I'm going to have to stop around midnight because we were starting a little bit later anyway, and because some of us are still part of the Walking Wounded, so we're going to go till about midnight tonight. But that's where we're at. So, are the players okay to continue till then, or do you need a 5-minute break, or are you okay for the moment?
I'm okay.
I'm good.
Okay. So in that case, I'm going to send you over to this area for shopping. So you probably are not surprised, Petra, to see that where he ends up bringing you, where Abraxas ends up bringing you, is back to his little bar that you actually went to before, where the bar itself is actually now more brightly lit than when you first were there the last time. And he sort of breezes you through all the little security protocols without having to go through that again. Excuse me, and brings you into the center of the room, which seems to have been repurposed as kind of like a sort of far future gentleman's warehouse outlet, because all of what you see here is a bunch of just like a mishmash of like all of these different kinds of things that are sort of available to you. So as you look, he basically has a couple of not very well put together, I may say, set of armor. There's a lot of what looks like light armor and medium armor, and even a couple of bits of heavy armor. You see a couple of what look like shields. There's one or two things that look like almost like wrist devices that might be like a portable, like electro shield, Petra, or something like that. But there's also a couple of what might even be maybe physical shields, which you have not seen for a long time. Sleepwell, you can see that there's an area here where there is like a good deal of like drone material and what looks like also, excuse me, a place for like healing ampoules and things like that, like a bunch of various medical equipment and things like that he's got available. And then Kaz, there is also a number, for everybody I should say, there are weapons, both melee and more ranged weapons of various kinds too. And then there are a couple of, there's just a bunch of things that all seem to be kind of gathered together in essentially what you would describe as like the miscellaneous rack. Like a bunch of different things, like you see what looks like maybe some kind of a flashlight. You can see what looks like a couple of awesome looking, cool looking long coats, like think Neo, Matrix style long coat, type deals. You see what looks like maybe some like night vision goggles in a couple of places. You see a couple of what look like communicators, some storage crates, and things like that. So there's a bunch of different equipment and things like that that are available to you also. And so Abraxas kind of shows you all this, and he says, so I'm happy to do the following for you. First of all, you can take any one of these items, one of them each, because I do have to pay back some of these people, for free. You can take one of these items for yourself. As for the rest, I'll be happy to give this to you at a discount. And of course, with that cubel that you've just been given by my current ally, he says, you should be able to buy even more of what you would need. So, for this, I'm going to ask you folks to consult in your, if you're able to turn to this in your PDFs of the player's manual, you'll see on page 132 an armor table. You'll see on page 135 a weapons table, and you will see on page 139 a miscellaneous equipment table. And now, not all of this is available, so you may ask me some things and I'll be like, yeah, that's not there, but a lot of it is available. And the price that you see there, the cost that you see there, will actually be discounted depending on the item. So you can take a look at some of these. So you can get one of these items for free. Again, if it has it, assuming he has it. Now, again, I can't promise. You'll have to ask, and I'll let you know if that exists. And then beyond that, he'll be able to give you a discount for additional items that you have.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so you guys can go in whatever order. You folks can go in whatever order you like.
I don't know all of what I want, but I already know. I take a look at that portable shield device, that PSD, and I already read through what it does. It doesn't increase armor class, but it does protect against high velocity things. And technically, I'm not wearing armor, so I don't think I have protection against that. So that would be useful that doesn't really come up too often, but.
Yeah, well, and in fact, it did come up a little bit on the station. So if you run into stuff like that again, it can do a lot of damage to you very quickly. And also from, maybe just the ominous nature of what you heard about Sector 77, like, you don't know, but like they might have gotten stuff like that over the last 20 years. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna pick up one of those portable shield devices, but I'm gonna pay for it at the discount. I'm not gonna make it my free item. So I know that I want to do that first.
Sorry. Each of you, I think, said that you got, I think I told you that you had 500 cubel.
Yes.
That's in addition to whatever that you folks had before, and this is the honor system. I'm trusting you to know what you have on your sheet or don't have.
Yeah.
So if you could just deduct 50, it's discounted, so I take that back. That is available, and that is available to you at 35 instead of 50 cubel.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I buy one of those portable shield things.
Okay.
And
there
then
are
I
two
have
of those, by the way, that exist. So there's another one left if someone else wanted one, but you don't have to get it. I'm just letting you know.
Okay. I take that and I attach it to my the kind of bracer or wrist portion of my suit, also where my weapons come out of.
Okay.
So that it almost creates like a protective, like scope, almost like a protective shield thing when I have the weapon out.
Okay.
So that'll be that. Okay. And then I'll think about other things that I want.
All right, sounds good.
Cool.
Sleep well, Petra. Either of you see anything that's exciting?
So
At
I wanted
Christmas,
to
our
ask,
favorite time of year.
in terms of medium armor, is there like a nano weave there?
There is. Thank you very much. Hold on, where's this name? Yes, Rex Monday. Welcome, Rex Monday. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Argonauts. Is there any kind of a weave you were saying?
It's called medium armor, the nano weave.
Nano weave suit. No, there is a suit which looks like, or not exactly. There's a suit which looks like it ought to be nano weave, but it looks weird. Sleepwell, like it almost looks like, how do I put this? Like a generic brand, like it looks like a version that may seem like a nano weave suit, but it's not designed normally, and you don't know what that means.
I'll ask about it. I'll be like, hey, what's up with this thing?
And he nods and he says, you've got good taste. He's like, well, we found this thing. Actually, we found it down in the Undercity. The people that let us know about it, the creatures, I mean, were your old friends, the Fenarg. They told us about this thing. They were really agitated about it, though. They kept saying something about the Destroyer and Consume and all that sort of thing, and I don't know what any of that means, but a suit's a suit. It looks kind of like a nano-weave suit, but I haven't had the chance to actually fire it up and try it. It's not standard. Might have been sort of custom-built, maybe, or made.
All right. I'm an engineer, and I have some computer skills and stuff. I don't know what exactly would it be, like an insight check or something, or like I would like to try to apply my skills to this.
I would say, well, what do you want to do with it? Like, are you trying to...
Basically, I'm going to try to figure out what's up with it. Like, since it's unusual and stuff, like how is it actually working? What might be different about it? That sort of thing.
Okay. Excuse me. So, for those of you joining late, I have a cold. As you look it over, I think I'm going to have you make a mechanics check for me, actually.
Okay. That's even better. Excellent. All right. 21?
Okay. Yes, it looks to you as if the suit looks like it would work in a very similar fashion to a lot of other ones. The benefit of this suit is the fact that it is a pretty solid AC while still being not as heavy as what heavy armor might ultimately be. But it does still kind of restrict movement. You get disadvantage on stealth checks and things like that when you're wearing it. And it looks like this would be similar. But one of the things that's unusual, the sort of benefit of the nano weave suit, is the fact that when you that basically there's this sort of extra coating, which basically makes it even more protective against outside attack. But what's unusual about this, though, is that there are several inputs that are inward facing. In other words, it's almost like electrodes that are on the inside of the suit, as if they're supposed to tie into somehow biomechanically into the wearer. Not, it doesn't like physically connect to you, but they're electrodes, so they're designed to sense actual electrical patterns moving up and down your body. And you've never seen that before in a nanoweave suit, so you don't know what that means, but that seems to be what it is.
It's sort of like a Fitbit. All right, I'm
Sure.
gonna say, like, I want this nanoweave Fitbit.
Okay. And he says, all right, then. Well, you're welcome to try it, and I will give this to you for free. This wouldn't have been, it's a little custom made anyway, to be honest with you. It's trying to, sell a spaceship after someone painted flames down the side, if you know what I mean. So I think it's perfectly reasonable if you want to give that a try. It's a little bit bulky, though, for a Volna. You might have a little difficulty moving in it.
And, so I'll put it on. Do I seem to have difficulty moving in it?
So you're able to move okay, but definitely sort of, leaps and acrobatic maneuvers and things like that, that looks like it would be harder in this suit. But otherwise, I mean, it definitely, you can see for yourself the base armor class, to go mechanical for a minute, is 15. So it's a better armor than you've got right now, and it has the benefit of doing that without being like 25 or 30 pounds. But again, even as you put it on, you feel a little bit of a tingling, maybe, might be the way to describe it, in the wrists and the neck, and several places along your back. But, otherwise it seems to be pretty awesome,
Yeah, I mean, being taken over in the middle of a fight sounds like it would be a bad deal, but it also seems like the sort of thing that he would overlook, like in character wise. Like, I
want
see
the flames down the side, right?
Around, but it's just like my character has to fucking take it.
I hear
He's
you.
like, all right, cool, so.
Okay, nano weave suit. Let me just mark that down. Okay. Sleep well in special nano weave suit. Okay. Yes, and also Rex Monday. Yes, this is Esper Genesis, which is 5e based, and is by Alligator Alley Entertainment, who actually sponsors this, and is an amazing system. They did an amazing job making this into a space opera, Mass Effect, Star Wars combination, basically, with 5e rule set. So it's pretty awesome. They did a great job with it. So okay, so you get that. You can still keep looking around if there's anything else you want to buy, and I'm going to jump over to, and by the way, just as a quick note, for Sleepwell and Kaz, what do you folks have Cubal wise besides the 500 that you were given? Anything else?
I had 200 remaining from probably past quests.
Sounds right.
So I'm at 665 right now.
Okay, Sleepwell, where are you at?
I am at 800. So, like, I don't know if you remember, but like at one point I picked up a cred stick that had an extra 100 on it, and then I had my beginning money, which I've never been able to spend.
Okay, so this is your place. So you got that. You can still look around for. And Petra, have you seen anything that catches your fancy?
So yeah, I want heavy armor.
Okay.
And I am looking it over.
Please.
That I'm tired of being hit, and so the heavier the armor, basically the better.
Okay. You will be happy to know that there is a suit of armor. Now this is the one. Hey, what's up, Prince Justin? Good to see you, man. So you say this basically to Abraxas, and he smiles, and he pushes aside on the armor rack, like, the little like, oh, isn't it cute? Like, Fisher Price, my first armor, right? Like, he pushes this aside, right? All of these things. And then in the back, he draws out, kind of staggering a little bit under the weight, this awesome looking, like, deluxe armor, which has a tempered multi-alloy chest piece. And there's, like, shoulder guards, leg guards. And you can see this, like, stuff all the way down. This looks like military grade. And he says, "Let me introduce to you a suit of armor that we discovered when we were dealing with some of the lower decks. Apparently someone retired and never told anyone about his Centurion level armor." And he kind of smiles and he says, "This stuff will take quite a bit. For example, Sleepwell, would you mind holding this?" And he holds over this, like, just ask you to, basically hands it over to you, Sleepwell, like, just for, like, to hold this big suit.
Okay.
So you, like, first of all, you, like, stagger under the weight, like,
right.
Like, and then he says, "Good. Now hold still." And suddenly he whips out a laser pistol and fires directly at the suit. And the thing just goes, and the thing literally goes, not ping, it goes thunk. The laser just literally stops.
Wow.
In the thing. And he sort of smiles and he says, and you actually could feel a little bit of the impact, Sleepwell. And he says, and he points down to it and he says, "And that's why it's Centurion armor." And where the laser hit, all you see, Petra, is basically just a black mark. Like, there's no pitting in the armor. There's no, like, it just stopped it dead. And he sort of smiles and he says, "That's what we call top level armor."
That is exactly what I'm looking for, I say, and happily take it.
Okay, now one question for you. What's your strength, Petra?
16.
Okay, good, because you need 15 strength to use this.
Okay.
So, yeah. So when you put this stuff on, you feel like a certified badass. You will never ever come up on anyone unavoidable again. Like you are, because you walk around and you're just like,
Clank,
RoboCop
clank,
basically.
clank.
Yeah. But oh my god, like they are not going to screw around with you. It is no joke.
Nice.
And yes, actually, you'd make a good point, Rex, because it didn't even feel warm where this thing fired off on. So it's no joke. This is very expensive stuff to make too. There is one other thing that I want to mention, which is that there is some strange insignia that you don't really recognize on it, Petra. And when you ask Abraxas about it, he's like, I don't know. He has no idea. So there's some obviously military insignia, but it's not something that you're particularly familiar with.
Is it the insignia of the unresolved plot thread?
Making it literally plot armor? I don't know whether they serve that.
Fair enough.
No, but there is a strange insignia on it, and it may,
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean therefore you will die when putting it on or you'll be pursued, but it means that it did belong to something else. It might
Okay.
even be older because you don't remember having seen this kind of armor before, actually.
Okay. Fair
So,
enough.
all right, so that's going to be your, I assume, free item that you're using there. So that gives us Petra Sleep Well, and that gives us Kaz. Oh, Kaz hasn't actually gotten his free thing yet. So, but Petra and Sleep Well have gotten their free things. Aramis will just miss out on everything. No, I'm kidding. We'll work out. We'll work out. Johnny when
I
he gets
think you should tell Johnny that Aramis took everything in liquor.
there. Yeah. He just
That we're like they offered him a bottle of like this incredible brandy or something like that, and we're like, yeah, that's what he wants. He doesn't want a weapon. He just wants the booze.
That's
Right.
awesome.
aged like 5,000 years, like that type of thing. Sorium infused. Yeah.
That's it. That's
I
it.
will keep that in mind. That's pretty funny. That's a possibility. Okay. So Kaz, do you have anything that your eyes have fixed upon? Oh, while you're doing that, by
Yeah.
the way, just one quick note. For Sleepwell and for Petra, Sleepwell, suiting up into this thing will take you about 3 minutes. Getting out of it will take you about a minute, which is not too bad. That armor that you just put on, Petra, is going to take you about 5 minutes to suit up and about 2 minutes to unsuit. And the reason this matters is you are not going to be getting in or out of this in combat, because remember, combat is like basically gradated, 6
Right.
seconds per round or whatever it works out to, right? Or 10 seconds per round. So, it will be a long time for you to get in or out of this armor. So when you're in it, you're in it. At least when you're in combat.
Okay. I think I... Okay. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, there's a few things that I think I might try to buy myself, but I say, I think it's about time I stop being so subtle all the time. Do you have a grenade launcher?
And he sort of says, a grenade launcher. Not
Yeah.
something I would have assumed was going to be one of your mix, but I might have just the thing. And so he kind of goes back and looks. And then he brings out from the weapon rack, not unlike when he sort of pushed all the little sort of nothing armor aside to bring out the big suit of armor for Petra.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, he kind of pushes away things and then pulls up this very, very large dual barrel is basically what it looks like weapon. This thing basically looks like it's essentially almost as long as your sniper rifle, but it's also super broad. And it basically has this stabilizing bar underneath it. So you've got double barrel and then a stabilizing bar plus the handle where the trigger is. And as he hands it
Okay.
over to you, like you actually literally kind of, bow slightly underneath its weight, because this thing is probably 5 to 6 pounds, maybe a little bit more, maybe even 7 or 8 pounds, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And the support bar, he says, all right, you've got to be able to hold on to that. Now, grab onto that bar there.
I grab onto the bar.
He's like, all right, now put your other hand around the handle there, leading to the trigger.
I do it.
Okay. He says, all right, now don't move. This might sting a little. And he presses a button, and then you feel this sharp pain for a moment, Kaz, in both of your hands. That kind of the suit of your hands, they kind of flow up into your energy body. But you feel this for a moment. And then he says, right, now this grenade launcher is set to go. This is biometrically linked to you. So long as you own this weapon, no one else can fire it but you. But to use it, you gotta have both hands on these things. And, well, there are some extra effects that it can have. And he sort of looks around, and then he opens up the door, basically through his little security camera. He's got that little hallway that leads into the bar. So he opens up both things, and then he yells out, all right, all of you clear out of the street. And they're all like, what? And then some people who are still... The street is much quieter than it was before, but the few people are there kind of quickly bustle out of the way. And he says, all right, let's see. Over here, there's there. And then he looks and he finds this one sort of semi-rundown, ramshackle place that's pretty much destroyed already. Looks like it was destroyed in the kind of rioting and everything that was happening already. And he says, right, that place has been deserted for at least the last 2 solar days. We made sure that everyone was out of there. We've scanned it already for life twice. Now, Kaz, if you wouldn't mind taking that for a spin. And he brings you over to basically the edge of the door. And he backs up. And then he tells Petra and Sleepwell and him. And they all basically go to the far end of the bar. So basically you're all in like one end, like pushed up against the armor and the weapon racks. And like all the people are gone from the street. And it's just you, Kaz, standing in the door with this grenade launcher.
Does it already seem to be loaded?
Apparently.
Okay. I fire it at the building.
Okay. So when you fire it, you press the trigger, and at first you think that it's jammed because nothing happens, but then you feel this and your hands start to kind of like, and then there is this huge, what feels like this like explosion from the thing, and you literally, actually, I need you to make a strength check for me, please.
Strength saving throw, or, well, let me see. Well, it depends on what you...
I will say check.
Okay, check. No athletics?
Yes, I'll take athletics.
Okay. 3.
You go like flying backwards into the bar, like right, and you sort of land on your back, and then you hear this, and there's like this sound of just this massive explosion. But the sound that preceded it, Kaz, because you were not looking at it, the sound that preceded it was a voomp, which was really weird. And what you, Sleepwell and Petra, and the rest of the people in the bar saw was something fired out of the gun, impacted the building, the rundown, destroyed building, and there was what looked like essentially this group of like this strange like energy field, and then everything basically collected from the building around the energy field and then blew the hell up. So if you remember, if I can give a modern example, in the Poltergeist movie, when the house implodes, that's what this is like, and then explodes after that. Mm-hmm. And so there's moments pause, and you hear, I like to think that you hear somewhere like, you know, hover car alarms afterwards, like on the street outside and all this stuff after this explosion. And the sound of like dust showering down and all of that. And he says, and Abraxas kind of goes up and gets you to your feet, Kaz, and says, that's not too bad for one of these little beauties. We call that a vector grenade. Another way to put it is, you just created a tiny little black hole.
Awesome.
He says, now, I do want to warn you all, there are some problems with this. For one thing, if you happen to be up against those who can repel certain types of energy fields, you may have a black hole thrown back at you. I don't know if you want to end up like the building, and as you look over, you just see like dust and like a couple of like beams that are like fire like that are left over of this building. He's like, I don't know if you want to end up like that, but if you don't, you're going to want to be careful about when you use it. Also, I would suggest you not use it at close range. And this thing that he had you fire at was probably like 100 and maybe 200 feet away. Like it was not that close.
All right.
So yeah, you played Mass Effect, right, Zach, or have you not? We've had this discussion.
Yes,
so
I have.
it's the cane. It's basically like the cane. One of my favorite
Good
weapons
old
of all time,
days.
by the way. The Black Widow was the best weapon in that game, but the cane was real good. The cane, for those of you who have not played it, is basically a tactical nuke. And there is a highlight on my channel of me eliminating an entire warship with this thing. It's like you can use it once per mission. And it was just one of those things where I just fired it off. I had never seen it work before. It literally sets off a tactical nuke, in my case within like 20 feet of my position, but somehow doesn't vaporize me. And I just spent the next 2 minutes just cracking up because there was nothing left. Like all you saw was my quest log update, like check. Because, like, it was like, they were like, yeah, you use the cane, so that's it. Anyway, that's what this is.
Okay.
So yeah, it's basically he called it a vector grenade launcher, which means black hole, basically.
Okay. I take it happily. Okay. And otherwise, so does every grenade that is fired from this thing function like that, or is?
Yes, and it takes usually somewhere on the order of, they use basically certain kinds of energy cells to recharge. The energy cells are expensive and take a long time to reload. In fact, it takes 4 rounds of combat to reload one of these things. And you only can really carry with you safely 2 of these things at a time, because they literally are almost like, they're basically like black holes in stasis fields. So you can only carry so many of those before they basically cause more problems. And so you're carrying 2 black holes in stasis fields. It comes with 2, you'll be happy to know. But recharging them is going to require you to find them, and you can only have 2 of them at a time, and they take 4 rounds to load up between.
Can it fire regular grenades though?
No, it does not fire regular grenades.
Okay. All right, that's good enough for me though. And you're saying that if I wanted to fire more vector grenades, I would have to find more vector grenades? I can't,
other than the ones
like,
that you already
recharge.
possess. Yeah, it's less vector grenades and more energy fields, basically. Now, it's possible, I don't know whether you want to risk telling Sleepwell this, but it is possible that you could modify, you might be able to modify certain energy sources that you find for possible use if you feel like hacking a black hole.
Sounds like a weekend.
I'm just going to sip my tea whilst I let that... Oh, that sucks, Coffin. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, so that's the deal with the grenade launcher.
I just like disconnected for a second.
Oh, I said, what was the lesson you heard?
You were like, maybe I shouldn't tell Sleepwell this, and then everyone.
Okay. The secret I can't repeat. No.
Yeah, exactly.
I said you could maybe, if you wish, hack certain energy sources you find, or Sleepwell could as an engineer, if you wish to try it, to see if you could adapt it for use in this launcher. That is assuming you feel like hacking a black hole. And then I sip my tea.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have I signposted enough as the GM for all of you the implications of the use? Yes, I just want to be very clear.
So when I fire the vector grenade though, is it a shell that I can go then recover that then could be recharged?
No,
okay, I would literally need to create another one.
That's right, because what it basically is the portion of the grenade that actually, most of it is just energy. The only portion of it that's physical is there is a kind of metal ring that is kept in place with 2 magnets that are alternating, and so the magnets combined with the metal basically keeps this black hole contained.
Okay.
So yeah.
And I have 2 grenades right now?
You have 2 of them, right. One is already like preloaded, but that's one of the reasons it occurs to you why you're not, like, the biometrics thing is so important. You get the impression that's not just to prevent other people from using it. it's so you don't accidentally fire it off. Like, this is not one of those
Yeah.
deals where you like actually shoot yourself in the foot because black hole.
Yep.
So what's up, Brent Hauser?
Okay.
Yeah, what could go wrong with hacking a black hole? I agree, Marine.
Of course,
What could,
of course.
you
Okay,
you could
cool.
really-
All right.
AKA
And
save it for the boss fight. Well, listen.
maybe. The only other things that I would want is just a regular shield to buy,
Okay.
and one of those cool Keanu Reeves Matrix jackets.
Okay. So the cool Keanu Reeves jacket, which looks like very slick, like, just like, like slick black leather. It actually comes with, this isn't going to be much use to you, Kaz, but it actually comes with awesome wrap sunglasses, like wrap around sunglasses type of thing. And this one is actually 40 cubal, not 50. So you're
Okay.
discounted at 40. And
I buy
then
it.
as far as the shields are concerned, so the thing that they basically have is it's a little clunky. It basically looks like a kind of essentially some kind of carbon. You think it's basically like a carbon fiber shield of some kind,
Mhm.
and it almost sort of looks to you like it would work kind of as like a buckler. So it would
Ooh.
add 2 AC to you under normal circumstances in melee. Now, if you're firing something though, you can't use it because if you're firing the sniper is too long. You can't, like, you wouldn't get the benefit of it. Like, you have to be,
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
longer than the shield. And if
Yeah.
you're using the grenade launcher, you have to be holding it with 2 hands, which
Yes.
means even though this thing attaches to your wrist, you can't position it in a way to defend yourself. So if you're shooting in combat, you don't get the use of it. But if you are, in melee, then
melee.
of course you do. Yeah,
Can I have a request actually?
sure.
If I, in the sense that it could be a buckler, if I was prone, and I was in a sniper position, and then I had a buckler in front of me, could I have it be like a +1 to AC maybe?
No, because the position, if you think about where your hand is, this thing attaches to your wrist. So imagine how your hand is placed. If your arm and hand are placed with your sniper rifle, the buckler is attached to the side of it. So you would have to literally put it like this, and you can't do that unless you want to aim the gun to fire to the right. You know what
I
mean?
guess so.
So that's
Sure.
why. There's no way to set it to do in front. It's not designed for that use.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I still take it. How much is that?
So that one normally would be 100, but here it is at the low price of 80.
Beautiful. All right. I buy it.
Okay. Sleepwell, you have anything else that you wish to buy?
So 2 questions. First of all, I ask, so are there any armaments here for non-military types that can still pack a little bit of a wallop?
And he thinks about it and he goes, and he kind of considers different options and he says, well, perhaps. Now I have a question, actually, a character question. Sleepwell, on your sheet, Carlos, does it show what weapons he's proficient in? Is he proficient in...
He's not proficient in martial weapons. He's only proficient in simple weapons.
In simple weapons? Okay. So... Yes, so then he does have one. And he says, it's interesting you mentioned wallop. And he pulls out this thing which looks for all the world at first like this metal, like, antenna. And you're like, the hell is this? And then he's like, and he looks around, he says, Petra, would you do me a favor, please, and mind just swinging your hammer at me?
Sure. And I will swing my hammer at him.
So as you swing the hammer at him, he does something, and you can't quite see what he does. And suddenly the antenna lengthens into what essentially is this large, even larger than a baton. It's almost like a metal quarterstaff. And as this sort of lengthens, you can see that there's some kind of blue light that's slightly arcing along the blade, Sleepwell. And as the hammer comes down, he sort of moves this staff/baton, sort of in between them size-wise, that he's still holding with the handle. And as it hits your hammer, Petra, you feel a slight, not a lot, but you feel a slight, like, shock, like a bzz, like, sort of feedback through the hammer. And then he gets out of the way of it, so he was also stepping back as you were doing this. And then he sort of does something again, and the baton returns to its sort of antenna-looking state. And he says, it's an electrified metal baton. Very useful for portable things that can cause a little bit of damage when need be. However, I wouldn't recommend you try to hold off against anything. It's not going to do much against ranged weapons, for instance. But against melee, at least gives you something to work with. What's the term? Speak softly and carry a big electrified baton, right? And he hands over this thing to you, Sleepwell.
Great. How much is it?
He says the normal version of this, of course, is just a regular baton. This one, however, as I said, is electrified, and it has a little bit of a benefit. Mechanically, out of game for a second, this thing, and this is leading up to what the cost. So this thing normally would do 1d6 bludgeoning, but because of this extra effect, it will do 1d6 bludgeoning and an additional 1d4 electrical, and an additional 4 damage against constructs or automatons. So 1d6, 1d4, and then an additional 4 damage. Not
Right.
4 to hit, but 4 damage
Right.
against an automaton or a construct. Which is why this costs not 20 cubal, but would normally cost 1,000, because this is very unusual, this item. However, because you already took your free one,
Yes.
because of the low price of discount Bob, he is willing to give this to you for 750. So basically a quarter off, 25% off.
Wow. That will basically wipe me out.
But you have a metal electrified baton.
Yeah. So, as I'm thinking about it, I just say, like, I really want that, but I also want to know some of the other equipment that you had. You said you had some special items here that are hard to find other places.
He says, that's true. What's your pleasure? Are you looking for some medical equipment, for example? I've got some healing ampoules. I have, what else here? He starts kind of looking at them, and he sort of goes, biosuit, blanket, diving gear, and he literally takes a diving mask and throws it behind him, and he's like, we've got a micro tool set, night vision goggles, and he turns it over to you and then presses a button and it does brrrr, and this green light blinds you for a second as it shines in your face. He's got that. I've got some let's see, what else here? Shovel, storage crate. So he kind of is giving you a bunch of this, that, and the other. He says, I've got some magnetic boots, and he sort of points to those. And, of course, some med kits, too.
So, just mechanically, are the med kits are they sort of like healing ampoules?
Yes.
Also?
No, med kits are healing kits. Healing, which means that they sort of facilitate healing checks, medicine checks, I should say.
Oh, yes. No, I actually have one of those.
Yeah, whereas healing ampoules are more like healing potions.
Right. So, how much are the ampoules?
Normally 500 each. But for you, the low price of 250 each. Half price.
You know what? I'm buying the stick.
And he says, good choice, as he does it again, and it buzzes a little bit. And so he hands it over to you, and he shows you that it's basically it does look kind of like a police baton. And so you can literally, there's a little button in the handle that if you press it, it sort of lengthens this way. And as Miranda says, in a pinch, it makes for a fashionable umbrella. Yes, exactly. It does that. But there's a little button in the handle that allows it to sort of lengthen. If you press the button a second time, that's when it actually generates electricity. So you press it once, second time generate electricity, and a third time pressing it then shrinks it again. Returns it to its normal size. Hey, Cyber Piglet.
Okay. So I am purchased out then.
All right. Petra, have you seen anything else?
Actually, you may remember that Petra likes to cook and has a small cooking kit. So I'm looking for any cooking related equipment that might be among here.
And he says, he's like, now we see why it is that Petra must be your real leader. One of you understands what matters most. And he says, I think I heard they were calling you Captain Petra before. And so he does dive into his set, and he brings out a few things. And one of the things that he brings out is this strange sort of item, but it kind of triggers some memory of yours, Petra. And as he puts it up, it looks for all the world like a suitcase, basically. And he puts it up on this table, and then he says, "There you are." And he kind of folds his arms and looks at you with this big smile. And it looks like you're just looking at a suitcase.
And I say, that looks like a very nice suitcase.
Suitcase. Why don't you come over and press the suitcase's locks? He says in air quotes.
I will come over and press the locks.
So when you press the locks, the top of it springs open, and suddenly the whole bottom of it lifts up on these metal legs which come out of the bottom, and unfolding are what look like 4 separate like stovetops, like basically 4 separate units that are out there. And in the back of it, this thing opens up and then upwards, and it looks like basically a rack, a metal rack. And in the metal rack are not 1 or 2, but 3 differently sized knives. And you don't know how the hell this actually fit, but it seems like it's somehow folded into this item. And he says, "That is sorium powered, and it's good for a half-life of at least 1,000 years. You won't need to find any energy source to power this for a while. This thing will bring you up to 500 Fahrenheit if you need any of these things to get that hot. And, of course, it'll heat up almost instantaneously." And he kind of smiles and looks at you and says, "This is how you make the best kind of food." And I mentioned that it looks familiar. This does also look familiar to something that you saw in Leo's, in the shop of, oh God, I gotta go find his name. Oh God.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the guy that you met with, Petra, that you remember you had the discussion of.
The guy who taught me how to charbroil stuff.
Yes, I don't know why I can't remember his name. I gotta find it again.
I thought that was Leo.
No, Leo's the guy who was on the, who brought you here in the first place and who's still back at the Pelton area.
Not Leo.
Yeah, his name is not Leo.
Mr. Not Leo.
I don't see it either.
I found all the way at the bottom Fred Minion. I forgot the
oh yes,
the guard from Quebec.
Fred
oh
Minion.
Man, my names. Let's see. I'll track it down at some point. But anyway, so it was something you remember seeing. Say it.
Fellis.
What, you sure that Fellis wasn't the?
Yeah, I have written down Fellis, best store in this entire damn space station. Has a mechanical dog.
That's the guy who's got the metal dog.
Oh,
that's
okay.
not the same guy.
Who are you talking about?
This is the one who actually was helping, who helped Rona, and was the one who basically had this big discussion with Petra about how he lost his beloved, who basically used to cook for him.
Yeah.
And they had this whole big thing.
That guy.
Yeah, and he basically put you guys up when the heat was on, and sort of so that you wouldn't.
Yeah, that was a nice guy.
I can find him.
I gotta find his name. But anyway, as you're looking for that, you remember seeing this same kind of unit, except it was already open, in his shop and unused, because you may remember that he was actually cooking over like old school stoves and stuff like that. But you remember seeing it in there. And yes, my voice is trying to go because I have a cold, Coven, and I'm trying to fight through it. But yes, so
I think his name was Evan.
Evan, yeah. I think that's right. I think that's right. Yes,
yeah.
His name was Evan. Of course, I remember Fred Mignon, but I don't remember Evan. Oh my God, so many names. Anyway, so yes, it reminds you of that.
I would like that. That looks fine. How much is it?
He says, normally something like this would cost 400 cubal, but because you're getting a discount from me, 300 and it's yours. 25% off.
Wow, 300 cubals. That's certainly a very good deal, though perhaps we could make it an even better deal.
He says, well, what would you want?
What about if I gave you 250 cubals? Because I don't have a lot. I have little Ashenford cousins that I need to take care of that I'm sticking money away for.
He says, I tell you what I'm going to do. 300 cubal, but I will throw in something myself. And he goes behind his bar, and he brings out this, what looks like vial of red powder. And he brings it over to you, and he says, now, I don't suppose you've ever had the chance to cook with Zerusian spice, have you?
No, I have not.
and he kind of he cackles in the way that only one who has cooked with Zerusian spice can cackle. And he brings out from behind the bar what looks like some kind of looks like a piece of some kind of bread of some kind. Might have been just sort of immediately reconstituted in some kind of food processor. But so he produces this bread, and then he takes, and it just looks like a regular piece of brown, normal, ordinary bread that you would get from a food synthesizer or whatever. And then he takes a little bit of this powder, and it looks like just 1 grain of it, and he just puts 1 grain of this stuff on the bread. And you swear, as you see it, you hear what sounds like a slight hissing in the bread. And then he hands it over to you, and he says, "Bon appetit."
Fair enough. All right. Zerusian spice. Well, that's it for me, I think.
And he waits. He says, "Well, wait, aren't you going to try it?"
Oh, I'm sorry. I will try it.
So I need you to make a Constitution saving throw for me.
Oh, dear.
Please.
I knew it was going to be something like this.
I knew you would do this.
Well, now I've also got to find the Roll20 window, which is somewhere in the middle of here.
Ah, yes. I feel your pain.
Oh, there we go.
Smoked paprika.
Yeah, that's all it is.
A 20,
Whoa.
natural 20.
Wow. So what you get is you taste this, and you have the experience, Petra, of as if someone, metaphorically, walked up to your taste buds and were like, "Hi," and then punched the taste buds straight in the face. Like, basically just like bashed you, right?
Okay.
But oh my God, the taste is this combination of salty and sweet with this peppery taste that reminds you of places that Tezora took you that she really shouldn't have, but you know, the food was goddamn good when you were there. And you know, in the life of an Ashen Forged, when you can get something that really makes you stand up and remember something, like on a taste level, that's what this is like. This is your memory has been given a kick in the ass by this Zerusian spice. And he's like, he smiles as he sees you, sort of whatever you're reacting to, and he's like, "You see what I mean?"
I like this. All right, this is a fine bargain, I say.
So he does that and then smiles, and once you have all those, he then says, "All right, got what you need?"
I'm good.
All right, Dragon Spear with the happy birthday wishes. Okay, so you folks are able to make your way back up then to make your way back up to the office where you see Aricia is standing there waiting for you. And as you walk in all sort of newly decked out, she kind of looks at you up and down, and she kind of it takes a little bit longer to look at you, Petra, as you're like clank walking in like with a badass with your new portable like suitcase oven like you're carrying and everything. And she's like, she says, "Well, you people look like you're ready to take on..." Sorry, she does not use Abraxas's voice. I pardon. Excuse me. She says, "Well, I'm glad to see that you're ready to take on an army. I suppose you gave them all stuff that's completely legal and legitimate, right, Abraxas?" And Abraxas sort of says, "I gave them stuff that works, which is much more important." And she sort of shakes her head, and she says, "Well, in the meantime, I've been getting you my own gift, let us say." And she hands you each what looks sort of like a small, almost like a brooch, like a pin. And she says, "I need you to put this on a surface attached to your body. Anything that's actually connected to your body in some way. Armor, your suit cause, something like that."
just to be funny, I take it and I just put it right on the visor of my face.
Okay, so when you do that and you put it on the visor of your face, you see this large brooch thing which is on your face. And now it seems to disappear to everybody else. And you're now staring like...
But I still have this big black dot in the middle.
And so she says, "How does that look, Kaz?"
I was just making a joke, and I take it off and I put it on.
After
put it on my
fumbling
hunter's
for
ring.
it a bit, you do
Yeah,
manage
yeah.
to. I was so tempted to be like, it's permanent now, but you take it off. You take it off and then attach it to another part of your body. And again, when you do this, it immediately vanishes to all sort of outside appearance. And she says, this is the Zephyr Core insignia. It's invisible to outside detection. The only thing that can actually find it are the Zephyr Core devices themselves. It is, as I said, older. If they found newer stuff by now, I can't promise that they're going to be able to detect that it's older. But it should get you past a lot more that's there, especially on Earth, where, if anything, some of the older material might be found.
Cool.
And she says, also, there's been some work done in the meantime on the Hyperlance, and she kind of glances at you, Sleepwell, and she says, the person who did this work said that it was going to work better than ever before. And then she said to make sure to let her know if you found that her services were of value for a change.
Oh.
She's now left and gone back to her own place here in Pelsaros.
Well, before we leave, I have 2 other quick things that I'd like to see if I could get from you while I'm here. Just some ammunition for an arm pistol.
Oh, that we can actually. You could have gotten that back at the store. That they'll actually provide you. You can reload if you wish to a reasonable level.
Okay, and then. So wait, we're not back at the what's his name's.
No, I
Abraxas's
assume that you
place?
had left that behind and had gone up to the office again, because that's where Arisa was waiting for you after you were done with Abraxas.
Well, here we'll wait until we're done with Arisa, and then as we're heading back down, I'll be like, hey.
Well, the idea would be to go to the ship from here, unless so that's why that's why I'm happy to just ex post facto say that you got it when you were at the store. That's fine.
The other thing that I want is a grapple gun.
A grapple gun. You just want to be the Mandalorian. Like, come on, man. Like everything you've done
I haven't
here,
seen it yet.
You've got the gun. You've got the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I actually am really having a hard time being like, I don't want to spend another money for Disney Plus, but I do want to see the Mandalorian. So
yeah,
I'm like, God, man.
And there's gonna be there's like the Obi-Wan series is gonna be on there too.
Right. And the thing was, what I heard was that the Mandalorian was good, and I'm like, God damn it. If you had just made
I actually heard it was good.
because like I seldom have time to watch a lot of this stuff, and the only show that I've watched as of late is Carnival Row on Amazon Prime Video, which is good, and I like it. But the Mandalorian has got some.
Yeah.
I already like Star Wars a little bit, and I kind of dig some of that feel for it. So I'm trying to find the equipment.
I think it's on page 140.
No, thanks. like just trying to stretch. No, I have Verizon. I only have Verizon. I have Fios Dragon, and that only counts for new Fios customers. So I've been a Fios customer for like a month, so I don't count. I guess I could call up and argue with them, but Exactly, right, Prince Justin? Someone was like, I think there's a good way to get all these streaming services together in one place. It's called cable. Like, Jesus, we already cut all these places. It's like, get this at Amazon Prime and get this at... Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I found the grapple gun. So, yes. Now, this thing normally would be $500. It is $400 from him.
Okay. I do buy it.
Okay.
And then I'll just buy out some ammunition and calculate it and everything.
Okay.
Is the ammunition also, or the bullets also discounted? Discounted bullets. They're normally 20 for 20 cubal for 20 bullets.
Yes, 15 cubal.
Cool. All right, thank you.
For 15 bullets. No, I'm kidding. It's such a deal. 15 cubal for 20 bullets.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
Now I'm good. That's all. Thank you.
But otherwise, that's what they say. Do you have anything else that you wanted to be able to do? I should also mention, by the way, that you will all, if you haven't done so already, I think already all of you had a long rest, but if not, then just be aware that you have your hit points back. You are now long rested, so you have all of your abilities back. Which, by the way, just to double check, Sleepwell, do you have 46 out of 46 hit points, or is that the old amount?
No, 46 out of 46 is the new.
Okay, and so Kaz 49 out of 49?
Yes.
And 49 out of 49, Petra?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Poor Erebus is 28 out of 28. Oh, man. I wonder if he hasn't rolled his yet, though, because he wasn't able to. So, anyway. Okay. So, just before you get on the ship, Arisa sort of says, I wish you the best of luck, and I'll try to be in contact with you as much as I can. But from this distance, and with whatever Sector 77's got going on, I don't think that I'll be able to necessarily guarantee I can stay in contact. But do the best you can. I'll try to get Abraxas to hack in when he can. And Abraxas nods. She says, but still, keep your guard up and take it easy. And Abraxas nods as well and says, the same. I'll do what I can to try to break through things. And, by the way, someone wants to... They'll be accompanying you. They said that they knew this place pretty well. And, they're waiting on the ship for you. And they kind of looks sort of, but doesn't quite look at all of you. And, then says, well, good luck to you then. And, turns, and Layden and Kratos, who are, of course, coming with you, sort of step up, and Layden says, well, it appears that we must spend more time with each other. I suppose it has not been an entirely undesirable experience, but going to Earth, I hear nothing but terrible things about that place. I'll survive it as best I can, though. That's what the contract says. And Kratos just kind of grunts. He looks very ticked off. And so they follow you onto the Hyperlance. And as you get on the Hyperlance, you can see someone making some like final adjustments to the front of the to the controls and so forth. That looks to be actually Rona who was doing that. And Rona turns around and says, "Ah, good. I'm glad that we found you. I'm glad that you're here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this just before we left. I've made some adjustments, and I think this should work out all right. But just so you know," and she kind of pauses and says, "there's someone who wanted to come with you. And she said that she was the only one who knew this place as well as all of you might." And then she trails off, and behind you, Petra, you hear a very familiar voice saying,
No.
"It's time for us to go back, Petra. Back to Sector 77 one more time." And you turn around to, I beg your pardon, Sector 70, that's right, I'm right, Sector 77.
Yeah.
And you turn around one more time to see the familiar and smiling face of Tazora Marickley looking at you. And that is where we are going to bring our session to a close for this evening.
Love it.
Yes. So, they're going home, people. They're returning to Earth, so to speak, even if it's not their home necessarily in the universe. Good stuff, folks. As always, I will start in general. I like everyone's like, no. I will start with the gentleman all the way to the right with the new do. And that, of course, is Zach Clay. Zach, good stuff tonight. I actually enjoyed with all of you. I know that this was not a big action-packed episode because you were doing a lot of other things that were important, but I was really enjoying seeing you guys get suited up, basically. You folks get suited up for the adventure. And so I enjoyed watching you do that, and I was a big fan of the black hole gun thing that you were working with. I just had this image of you trying it. So how'd you feel about today, and where will the lovely folks see you next?
Well, I think it was a very focused and efficient session. We did some real shopping, and we did some lore shopping, I think. And so this was all the shopping we needed to do. I have a Matrix jacket now, so it's officially canon. Yep. The fan art, I expect the fan art to be finished. And the wrap sunglasses somehow. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Somehow. I'm excited for the portents of the future. Not so excited that I may actually be a dormant carrier of the long winter virus, but
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know what I mean either. We'll figure it out when we get there.
You're right, Greg. I also don't know what you mean. Why don't you tell me?
But yeah, it was good. It was good to get in and see our friends again. I think Kaz is awaiting a long conversation with Sleepwell, though. especially given that Aramis technically also would have been witness to that altercation.
Yeah, and by the
So-
way, just a quick note, we will, next session, we will go back to the, Aramis having a chance to buy stuff, and also Aramis having a chance to chat with Sleepwell, etc. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll flash back a bit. The only thing is, it needs to end up with all of you on the ship. That's the only thing we got to eventually get to. Right?
Yeah.
So,
It's got to resolve somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. I'm happy for it and excited to see where we go.
and where will the lovely folks see you next?
The lovely folks will see me next here on this channel for our next session.
Right.
For our vocalists, assuming that none of us in the our vocalists are deathly ill.
Oh god.
And on my own channel, back to streaming again soon, TM. I'll let you know.
Soon, DM. I love it. I can't wait for that to happen. What's up, Shatter? Honk. So just one quick thing, Rock God. The Sector 77 supposedly is below Old New York City Central Park. So I feel very much like the Bourne Ultimatum. I feel very much like they're, Jason Bourne is coming home.
Dear God, it's Jason Bourne.
The party is coming home. We'll see. But good stuff today, Zach. I can't wait for all of that
Yeah.
stuff as well. And we will see you back here for that 2 weeks from now. We will also see back here, of course, Mr. Carlos Hernandez as Sleepwell. And I really enjoyed, as always, of course, good role play with Spindra. That was a lot of fun. I was also enjoying you putting on the nano weave suit with your player part of you being like, this is really dumb. And the sort of role play part of you being like, badass. Clearly, I want to wear this. It's just of course, vaping is better. Is better than cigarettes. I love the idea of you doing this. So it was a lot of fun to watch that happen, and I am actually curious to see. Also, I was enjoying the little the mini constructs, the mini me's for each of them. I think that's going to be a lot of cool too. So
Yeah.
how'd you feel about today, and where will the lovely folks see you next?
I mean, yeah, you covered those high points. It was really fun. I just wanted to, so I'm hitting return right now in the chat. I just put the 2 tweets that Claire wrote while I was yelling my head off at Spindra, because it is so out of character for me. I just do not yell in my life, ever.
Is this Claire saying this?
I'm not that person. So, she was just sort of like, bleh. I just imagine this alternate timeline where the yelling.
Is this
That's
Claire
funny.
saying this? Is this
Yeah,
Claire?
this is Claire who wrote it. And, it says this is on Twitter, so, I was bringing everything to the acting, today. I just want, I give way outside of my character for this role of Ludacris.
It's great.
That's so cool. Yeah, she's a really cool person. I also love the fact that she did this stuff in caps because I can imagine her saying those things like eavesdropping and gets angry.
Yeah, right.
That's really, really funny. No, that's awesome. I'm glad. And
So
you do
tons
it
of
super
fun,
well. Yeah.
Tons of fun. And I mean, really, I just what I read somebody else said this, and I just wanted to steal it immediately. Where they wrote, when I was 20 years old, I just wanted to max out my character stats and make the biggest build possible. And now, when I role play in my 40s, I want to, basically find a hilarious character flaw and build the whole character around that. And I feel like that's what I'm doing with Ludacris, Sleepwell a lot, where he's just sort of like, he's the one who jumped in the suit before and, was basically taken over by monsters. So he's like, oh, probes, the destroyer, jump.
Exactly. Well, and I think there's a way to do that without being like, you're not just going to be like, yes, I'll leap over the cliff. You're going to do it if you assume that you have some new drone that will save you when you jump over the cliff. You know what I mean? You're not going to be intentionally suicidal. But
no, it's not suicide at all. I mean, he did his check and stuff, and so he's under control.
Right.
I've played long enough to know that this is not probably going to end up to be ideal for him, but it will probably lead to excellent storytelling.
It will be fun narrative. I cannot tell you how happy I am to hear those things. Yes, for sure. Where will the fine people see you? Excuse me, next.
So I'm going to be at the Miami Book Festival. So I'm coming home next week, where I get to talk about some Sal and Gabby stuff. I might be reading from the new book and stuff. So that's going to be really fun. And then a week later, I'm right back here. Right back here.
And we are going to be starting, as a programming note, later to accommodate that. We will actually start at 9:30. The hope is that Eastern. The hope is that he'll be back by then. If
Yeah,
not,
plane's coming back. Like I leave at 4 from Florida or something like that.
So hopefully we should be okay. And I know that he won't have to worry about jet lag, but he'll probably be exhausted from a bunch of stuff that we're doing. But he's going to try to, be a trooper about it. And that means that Johnny must be here at all costs, Video Store Cowboy, so that we can make sure that we got the full crew to make up for, Carlos coming back and rushing his trip. But safe travels down to Miami and back. Congratulations again on everything and getting the manuscript in, and continually feel better. I will just say that, and hopefully, like you have that new thing where you can heal other people and then it heals you. So maybe if I give you healing wishes, I will also be healed in that process. So that would be nice if we all feel better together. That would be lovely. But thanks, Carlos. Good work today as always. Also really good work from Kat today too. And it was great, I think, to actually see. I really love the idea of you being like, you know what, it's time for me to really go with the heavy, and to just to be able to have the clank, I'm the badass armored character was a lot of fun for me to see that, along with also sort of having a referee between people like Spinger and Sleepwell. How'd you feel about today, and of course the Tezora semi-reveal? How'd you feel about today, and where will the lovely people see you next?
I really like that. I think Petra has needed heavy armor for some time now, and now the idea of her clanking around with her huge flaming hammer in heavy armor is delightful to me. Where will people see me? I've actually stopped traveling for the year. I've got one more family trip and then I'm done. So people can find me online on Twitter as Cat Rambo, and I have a brand new novelette out called Carpe Glitter. Please check it out. It's what?
Where is it? Where can we find it?
You can find it on Amazon or from Meerkat Press. It's
Excellent.
In both and physical form. I'm really happy with it. It's got glitter and Nazis and having to sort through your grandmother's crowded house. All of that.
Like you do.
That is amazing.
That's like one does.
And I am going to put a link to the Meerkat Press, which I would encourage you to go there first. Amazon's cool, but let's, as much as we can, support the publisher. I think Kat would agree with me. / the independent publishers, presses, and direct as much as you can. But if you want to get it through Amazon, anything helps authors, but independent things helps us too. So I shouldn't assume that's true for Kat also.
I read an article that said actually the best thing you can do for an author is to order from an independent bookstore.
Okay.
That actually, for a number of reasons.
I felt the same way, so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that's cool. Also, I love that cover, by the way. It's a really...
Isn't it pretty?
Yeah, it's really cool. So definitely check that out, folks. Kat, of course, is a wonderful writer, and you know this because you have watched previous editions of the Rambo Academy for Wayward Writers, and indeed, the Rambo Academy for Wayward Writers, Kat and I will talk to confirm, but it looks like excuse me, now, the Rambo Academy is slated to return next Thursday, the 21st at 8 p.m., because the following Thursday is Thanksgiving. So I think that's what we're looking at. I know that this is 2 things in a week, but we also have Hearts of Wulin on that Monday, and that's she can yell at her brother about that one if that turns out to be wrong, because that's I hosted it.
I appreciate this. Folks don't know that we actually had a heart-to-heart where I was like, Greg, I had to do 3 things in one week.
I really am anxious not to burn anyone out. I don't want to burn anybody out. But yeah, so I'm trying to make this effort. But anyway, so you will see Kat next week a couple times here, and then you'll see her back here the week afterwards. Let me be clear for Esper Genesis. So. Thank you so much, Kat. Always a pleasure. And of course, Video Store Cowboy will be back with us next time, by which point he will have hopefully gotten out of the traffic jam 2 weeks from now. I would assume that is the case. And you will
Sounds
see...
like Kat has a cat.
Taco is right here, and she's just like, it's time to feed
Taco's
me.
like, let's go, Mom. I get it. So you'll see Video Store Cowboy back here as well. You should follow him on all the things also. Many thanks to my wonderful players. Thank you again to Cat Rambo. Thank you to Carlos Hernandez. Thank you to Zach Clay. Chat, can we get some love for our wonderful players? And I will see all of you lovely people in one of the many things I mentioned soon.
Thank you, chat. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you,
always a pleasure.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
And that is going to do it for that. All right, that was awesome. Again, I really have loved the Esper Genesis campaign. I've been having lots of fun running it for them, and it just gets more and more cool. I love sort of the interweavings of things that we're able to do, and a lot of that is totally up to and thanks to the wonderful people from Alligator Rally Entertainment. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that I see that Brian is here, and so I have to apologize to Brian because Brian was actually working on a map for me. And I'm still going to use the maps, just so you know, Brian. I am going to be using them next time. It turns out we didn't end up getting to them, so I apologize if I made you do anything out of the ordinary too quickly. But I do want you to know that they will be used, and I really appreciate it, and the players will appreciate it, and all that kind of good stuff. So yes, that's the deal with that. But thank you so much to the amazing people at Alligator Rally Entertainment for sponsoring us, and of course the Forbidden Library, Tales and Tomes of the Forbidden Library, also by Alligator Rally Entertainment, which is my 3-part adventure originally run at Gen Con, and with contributions from Carlos Hernandez and Cat Rambo. That is going to be coming out soon. They are now in final edits for this. I actually just spoke with Rich Lescouflair, designer of Esper Genesis, and is working on the edits for this too on Forbidden Library yesterday. So they are in final edits. They're making great progress, and it definitely will be out, he said, hopefully by the end of the year. So it'll definitely be out by the end of the year, which is super exciting. And speaking of the end of the year, so again, thanks to Alligator Rally. Speaking of the end of the year, for those of you who missed this, Friday, December 6th is going to be a big announcement coming up for 2020. We have a big event that I'm going to be announcing, actually a big publishing related thing, game related thing, which I'm going to be announcing on Friday, December 6th during my normal stream. So Friday, December 6th, you will want to check it out and be there because it's going to be awesome and you will not want to miss it, and it's going to be sweet and cool and great and all that kind of good stuff. So you will definitely want to make sure that you are back for that. Yeah, I think that's the only thing I need to mention there. The only other thing I need to talk about is just about the raid that we're going to do, which is... yeah, I hope my voice is 100% also, Coven. We'll see. Right now I'm going to go rest it, is basically what I need to do. So the Arvanauts have landed, followed by Twitch raid, lowercase twitch, uppercase R, lowercase AID. Yeah, Carlos is getting over pneumonia. I'm dealing with a bad cold, courtesy of my son. Zach just got over a bad cold, so we have a lot of that stuff going on. Maybe that's what happens when you drop like 20 degrees in a day or whatever that we had in our weather. So, but we will get through it. It'll be fine. But anyway, so if you are a sub, yeah, I'll bet, yeah, and you definitely need to do that, Chatter. I'm glad you're home. Now you can do some more runs of Goose Game. Now you can do more runs of this. So, let me see. Yeah, hold on a second there, Coven. Let me see here. Let me just turn off that so I can look at this whisper. Okay. I think I'm probably not going... Coven was actually just making a recommendation about a person to raid. I don't think I'm going to raid them in this particular case, Coven, mostly because I don't like to do that unless I actually know the person or I have a chance to really look into their stream for a little bit. Otherwise, I try to, just because technically otherwise people can be like, wait, what? So I do sometimes raid people sort of not without knowing them, but I don't feel currently kind of up to doing that, just in case someone's like, wait, who the hell are you? So I appreciate the recommendation, and please make it again in future because I'll probably be willing to do it in the future. Yes, I will do that. I will absolutely do that. I will add it to the check the person out. If you give it a recommendation, that's serious credentials for me to give her a checkout. So I will definitely take a look at that. So we are going to be doing a raid, and you saw the way to do it. The key is to just wait until you hear my audio, until you do the Esper Genesis video, and then you will be brought over automatically to that stream. If you haven't already done so, he's playing Pokemon, yeah. If you haven't already done so, excuse me, If you haven't already done so, please make sure to support the channel by following the channel. Check out the YouTube with !ArvTube, Discord with !Cord, the Twitter with !ArvTweets. You can find all of that at arvanelaron.com. Don't forget to check out as well the financial stuff. The shop is !ArvShop for merchandise relating to Adventures of Middle-earth and merchandise relating to Infinity and Beyond. Hopefully soon I'll be able to get some Esper Genesis stuff up on the store as well. And then we have got the Patreon, !Arvtreon, currently sitting at 302. Again, I'm getting considerably less than that after fees and so on. It's closer to like 160. So any support that people can give really does help and really makes a difference for the channel. So please consider doing that. And last but certainly not least, that sub button above the video window. We currently have 47 or 48 subs right now, I believe. I think it's 48 subs actually. So we're continuing to move that up as well. And that also makes a difference for the channel. So any support that people can give there would also be appreciated too. That's going to do it for me. I will see you folks on Saturday, later today, Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, assuming that my voice survives, for D&D with Infinity and Beyond, Curse of Strahd. And then I'll be back after that. Monday for Hearts of Wulin will be Lowell Francis, Kat Rambo, Saad, and Joyce Chung, and Mike Underwood will all be joining us for Hearts of Wulin on Monday evening. And then Tuesday, I'll be back with more Adventures of Middle-earth at 10:30 a.m. Eastern with that crew, and then D&D with GOG Storm King's Thunder in the afternoon. So we've got a lot of good role-playing up as well. And don't forget, last but certainly not least, to weigh in here. Yes, thank you. Takes it in Strahd. I see what you did there. Prince Justin and I would like to subscribe to your newsletter. So definitely make a vote on this. Right now, Disco Elysium is leading Death Stranding 9-6 and leading Frostpunk by only one extra vote. So it's 9-6-5, Disco Elysium, Death Stranding, and Frostpunk respectively. So make sure you get in there, and I will be happy to let you know about the results of that next Tuesday, and then we'll do the vote after that as well. Please don't close the bar anymore. Yeah, I hear that. All right, but that's going to do it for me, folks. I want to thank everyone who was here. Thank you to my wonderful mods, Common Guy, Rock God, Dragon Spear, Shadow Mage. Thank you to my wonderful subscribers, Common Guy, Rock God, Nonstop, Prince Justin, Write Teach Play. Thank you as well to Write Teach Play, to Cat Rambo, to Zach Clay for their wonderful play as players tonight. And thank you for the subscriptions to the people that I just mentioned as well. Thank you as well to Commander Root, Crit Twitch, Cyber Piglet, Demiser of D. I haven't seen Demiser in ages. What's up, Demiser? Good to see you, man. To Gathing, to Jagtress, to Lurks, to Mubat, to Safaka, Mubat, I guess, to Safaka, to you, Christensen, V&K, Virgo Praz, Windsock, and Zebchi. That is going to do it for me. Much love to all of you. Stick around now for the outro video and then the awesome raid that's going to happen next. And I will see all of you lovely people. Please pray for my voice and my cold on later on Saturday for Curse of Strahd and Infinity and Beyond. Until then, everyone be good to each other. Have a good night.
When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I grew older, I set aside childish ways. Corinthians 13:11. In the distant future, mankind has spread into the stars and found it is not alone. Within the cluster of planets known as the Silrain Heart, many races strive for survival or supremacy. But throughout this array of planets, societies, and cultures, each has one thing in common. The Crucibles. Scattered throughout the galaxy, each moon-sized structure contains a core of raw sorin, a form of mysterious energy used to power ships, cities, and sometimes the warping of the fabric of reality itself. Beings who can do this have been given a name: Espers. The power of God has been granted to God's children. It is a time of terror. It is a time of wonder. It is the time of Esper Genesis.